only thing we have to
Beer.
is
Beer.
itself.
Beer. So many choices.
Only no function beer well without.
Woohoo! Beer! Hello and welcome to another episode of Beer Busters, where we're going to bring the news and reviews of your favorite brews. My name is Dan Baker. I'm joined once again by my co-host and brewologist,
Steph Hefner.
It feels so surreal having you back. I know you were back last episode, but it's
I was listening to the Evil Genius episode on our way down here. We got about halfway through it, so I'm proud. It would have been better if I was
It would have been
there.
much, much better, but that just means we have to get back there. And, of course, we do have the Demented and Fermented
Wayne Baker
with us as well. Two of us got to stay in Philly. So technically, three of us got to stay in Philly.
I will say for Friday night, it wasn't as bad as it could have been getting into here, into the city.
Oh, that's good.
From what I gather, you
wasn't
made
the
pretty
worst.
good time. Yeah. Parking was a little iffy for us, but
Hey,
apparently
we got a space a block away.
I'm jealous.
No worries.
We're like 3 blocks away, but we're in Fishtown. Fishtown is a bumping part of Philly.
Is this technically Fishtown? Okay.
Yes.
Because
Yes,
I
we
know
have-
that like you go one block and it's something else.
Sort of. No, this part I knew was Fishtown proper, but that means we're at Kurant Cider. And this is a very exciting episode for us because we have not done a full episode just on ciders.
We have not. I was actually thinking during the intro you should drop in everywhere it says beer in our intro music. You should just drop in the word cider.
Maybe I'll go and edit that if I have time.
How lame can we be tonight?
pretty lame, apparently. But of course, we have the man, the myth, the legend behind Kurant Cider with us. We have
Joe Getz.
Joe. Thank you so much for having us out here, man.
Yeah, thanks for coming by. We are super excited.
Cool, man. I'm pumped to be here.
Me too.
Along our travels and our recording, we've had some Kurant Ciders, and they're always a huge hit. And I can't wait to get into all of the madness behind the scenes and everything.
And our fans might remember the day that this current cider, this current location opened up was when we were at Homebrewed Events.
Oh my gosh, that's right. I forgot that was that day.
Brewing a beer, and teaser for last call, there's a very good chance we're going to be drinking that beer in today's edition
It might all come full circle
of last call. So before we plug our socias, I just want to remind you that if you want to
plug our sausages.
Before we plug our sausages. If you want to hear that and much, much more, go to patreon.com/beerbusters to support us and you get access to our bonus podcast, Last Call.
Yes, and I know we say this a lot, but I am actually cooking up ideas I got to run by you, Wayne, for what we can do for Patreon. So stay on the lookout for new rewards that might entice you to finally become a patron. If you don't,
we could always bring out the onesie again.
We could. That was the $50 donation.
Yeah, I could purchase a new onesie
for $50. Steph will wear a onesie.
Do they get to choose which onesie?
That's a good.
There
For
you go.
100, no, for 50, she'll wear a onesie of her choice. For 100, Steph will wear a onesie of your choosing.
Wow.
Subject to
We
it.
do have some basement recordings coming up, one in December and one in February.
Yeah,
That's
we
true.
Have,
Oh, February. That's
subject
gonna be
to
a fun
approval.
one.
That one will actually be in January, so it can.
So it'll air,
release in
yeah. But
February.
that's the annual one with Greg Orth. I can't wait for that.
It's always a fun time.
Other places you need to go on the internet. BeerBustersPodcast.com. Don't forget, on Twitter and Instagram, we are at BeerBusters, so you can find us and follow the shenanigans on there. There is, of course, Patreon. There is the phone number, which I might stop plugging soon because nobody seems to be using it.
Except James.
James, when he's
Except for
drunk.
James, 805-991-BEER, 805-991-2337. Joe Mann used to use it, too.
Call and tell us what onesie you want Steph to wear.
Yes. Yes, please do.
What have we started?
I don't even know.
You are the one who kind of started
Hey, it got us a $50 Patreon donation.
It
so
did.
I feel like it was worth it.
And if you aren't at a point where you can be a patron, hey, I get it, man. You know, there's a lot of things out there that are demanding your money. At the very least, we just ask if you can leave a rating and review on your podcast platform of choice. That helps other people find this show that I'm hoping you know and love because we love doing it. And it's cool to have new people listen to it. So that whatever platform you use, 5 stars would be cool, but hey, be honest.
That wall is the perfect photo backdrop. I'm sorry.
Nice.
Yeah, Dan looks pretty good in front of that wall.
We basically built an Instagram building here.
You totally did.
He really did, yes.
It's true. That is true.
I couldn't resist. And now I have to put it on Instagram.
Now you have to. Well, we got a lot in front of us, so why don't we do the news? Yeah, we didn't have any phone interviews lined up for this one. So if you have anybody out there that you know that owns or operates anything to do with a brewery not in this immediate area and wants to do a phone interview, let us know because that was a lot of fun.
Actually, I've already had some more reach out, so
Sweet.
We'll get on that.
All right. There's 2 stories, and I wanted to do things that weren't super duper timely, but they're interesting to talk about. One, I'm not gonna lie to you guys, is a cold read because I found it while I was looking for a link I forgot to copy earlier. So we're all gonna learn this second one together.
This is a true test of Dan's skills.
Here we go. Let's see what that broadcasting degree does. All right. So over the years, we all know that the Brewers Association, they have changed their definition of what it is to be craft beer along the way. Most recently and most controversially was when they allowed corn to be in the brewing process to be considered craft, which let Yuengling come in and take the top spot. Well, as reported by thedrinksbusiness.com, which all sources a different article anyway, Left Hand Brewing founder and chair of the Brewers Association board, Eric Wallace, wrote in an email to members...
Very awesome guy, by the way.
That's good. That the group is considering dropping the, quote, traditional requirement from its current definition. As it stands, in order to qualify for brewery membership, you must conform to the group's craft brewer definition, which the current guidelines stipulate that the brewer must be small, which is an annual production of 6 million barrels or less.
Small.
So
Yes.
yeah.
Which that was amended years ago, so
For Sam
Boston
Adams.
Beer could still be in it. You have to be independent, which means that less than 25% of the brewery is owned or controlled by a beverage alcohol industry member, which is not itself a craft brewer, and traditional, which has a majority of its total volume in beer flavors derived from traditional or innovative brewing ingredients and their fermentation.
That pretty much covers everything.
It does. As such, the BA does not consider flavored malt beverage or alcoholic seltzers to fit the brief. So there is a growing
Like
market of
Zima.
both of those. Yeah, exactly. Now, Wallace said the reasoning behind... I lost my spot. Wallace said the reasoning behind the move was linked to the rise of cannabis and cannabis derivative infused products. A number of the group's members have expressed
I thought
interest...
you meant just the rise in cannabis in general.
Well,
I was
yeah,
like, wait
pretty
a minute,
much.
how does that work?
Everybody's more chill now.
Yeah, right?
Exactly. A lot of members have expressed interest in creating products infused with THC and CBD after surveying 1,000 registered brewers, which, that's a joke because there's 7,000
We
brewers.
sell tea where I work that has CBD in it.
Do you really?
Yeah, nobody buys it.
I would buy it.
It's
You want
probably...
it? It's
Is it
expensive.
expensive?
Yeah, it's
I was
really
gonna say.
expensive. Yeah.
I've been told with all my various pains that I should try CBD oil. The email continued, what we learned from the survey is that nearly half of the membership is already brewing, and more than half would consider making the future products that fall outside the existing Brewers Association traditional tier, such as cider or mead or other products taxed as beer, like hard seltzers and flavored malt beverages and alcoholic kombucha and sake and what have you. Nearly half surveyed said they would consider purchasing beers containing CBD or THC should the regulatory structure change federally around the product. So they are they're looking into considering keeping all that into it. It's going to be weird though, considering weed's not legal all around the world or all around the country rather.
But I do think expanding the scope of the Brewers Association to include, because there are a lot of craft beverage makers that aren't beer, like cider, that are sort of up and coming. So I think having them involved, like having an organization like the Brewers Association that has a lot of pull, has a lot of members, can do a lot of good for you. It's cool for them to expand their umbrella, pun intended, because it's pouring right behind me.
I'm curious of a cider maker's view on all this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we have our own sort of BA. It's the U.S. ACM. They don't really have a strict guideline of what craft is necessarily. There's just kind of a more delineated perception of what craft is within the industry. I think no one's going to say Angry Orchard's craft. It's just not.
Right.
But yeah, I guess something like a Stella or I don't know. There are some things I guess that are kind of down the middle, but we don't really argue about what the craft label gets applied to ever. Everybody's basically small, and then we're craft. So there's no need for the USACM to say, hey, you made 6 million barrels of cider, you're still craft.
Right.
There's only like 4 companies doing that, and they're not craft by any stretch. So it's really split more about who's using fresh pressed juice versus using concentrates. That's really the dividing line between craft and not craft in the industry.
Interesting. And obviously we're not very expert on ciders, but I do feel like the landscape in the cider industry is very different than it is in the beer industry. That might change because cider is, I think, becoming more popular, but yeah, it's an interesting point.
Yeah. One more thing, because we mentioned Boston Beer and Sam Adams. Brewbound pointed out that the group's largest member, which is Boston Beer, which produces, of course, Sam Adams, Angry Orchard, Twisted Tea, and Truly spiked and sparkling. Hey. They're in danger of being dropped from the
Jazz
group.
hands.
Yeah, no. They're in danger of being dropped from the group under the current guidelines as the company is increasingly reliant on sales of its non-beer products. So all the other portfolios that are not craft beer put them in danger of not being labeled craft beer anymore unless it evolves again to include them again.
I wonder if they spun those off as like a sister company. Like if they,
It would make sense.
Like if they really wanted to get around, like if the Brewers Association was like, "Hey, you're selling,
Yeah, spin it off to like Boston
more of your-
Beverages.
right?"
But I don't understand why the other products.
Because you need to have that percentage.
Yeah, if they're selling, 5%
Oh, I
Truly
see.
of their portfolio, and then
Right.
next year they sell 10% Truly, but 5% less Sam Adams.
Yep.
They're making the same barrelage, but it's a not
Yeah.
beer product.
So it'd almost be smart to put it as a separate entity.
Yeah, like a different LLC with it.
Of course, what do they care? I mean,
I
at the
don't
end of the
think they
day,
do.
they're a business and they want to make money. And does
Yeah.
it really matter if they're part of the BA or not? I mean, I wonder how
I
important
mean,
that is.
it
to
mattered
them.
enough that the BA has in the past adjusted their guidelines to
Yeah,
accommodate
just
them.
to keep them, yeah.
Yeah, but does that matter to Sam Adams, or does that
Is it-
matter to the BA?
I don't know which
No, that's-
direction that
Oh,
goes.
good
That's
point.
what
Yeah.
I'm wondering.
Yeah.
I wonder if they do get dropped as craft, what would happen to the consumer base? Like, I'm sure you have somebody out there who is kind of stuck up enough to say, "Oh, you're not craft anymore. I'm not
I
going to
don't
drink it." You're
think-
Not when
too
it comes
big."
to Sam Adams.
No, I
yeah,
don't think so.
I don't think
But
Boston's
not in necessarily
No.
Boston itself, but I know there's got to be somewhere out there that will spite them because they're not craft
Here's
anymore.
the thing, though. Plenty of craft beer drinkers will drink Sam Adams. I'll drink Sam Adams.
I love
like a
Sam
lot
Adams.
I like a
Yeah.
lot of their beers.
Boston Lager's a great beer.
But anybody who's going to turn up their nose because of a change in their official, definition of craft isn't probably drinking Sam Adams to begin with.
True. I'll give you that.
The problem, though, continues to be that beer is still the minority here in the alcohol drinking world.
Right.
And there comes, I mean, you can have your opinions and you can drink things because of different reasons, whether it's because you like it or not, or because you have feelings about their
Socio-political
exactly.
motivations.
But at the end of the world, I mean, the beer industry needs to stick together because the beer industry is not the top when it comes to alcohol consumption.
So when do the small guys start totally revolting against Sam Adams? Has it happened? I don't know.
I mean, you still see Sam Adams still pops up at beer fests, even ones that aren't particularly huge. I mean, they still have a footprint in the craft industry, and I mean, they're represented at Meeting of the Malts. They're represented at all kinds of industry events that are on the craft side. So I don't know.
Well, and even Yuengling.
Yeah.
And I think it's even more interesting in Pennsylvania because we are the number one producer of beer, and solely because of those two companies.
That's true.
I mean, you take Sam Adams
And cider is
Yuengling
also
away.
the same.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Ah.
Yeah, they make Angry Orchard up in Allentown.
Right. So
Yeah.
oh wow.
A lot of people in Pennsylvania take a lot of pride in that stat. However,
But
you have to
that
boil down
comes
to
from
why
Right.
that is.
Yeah. Well, and again, but it's not Budweiser. Like, there's still good beers. Yuengling makes great beer. Sam Adams makes
Yeah.
great beer. Like, it's fine. And like, if it's good beer, drink it.
Well,
Like,
and everyone that listens to our podcast knows that my opinions about this change and sway all the time.
it's difficult. It's
It is
difficult
super
because
difficult.
you want to support craft, you want to support local business, you want to support the little guys, all the cool people we meet on the podcast. They're all threatened when these big guys come in and push them off the shelves or push them off the taps and that sort of a thing.
But my number one priority when purchasing and consuming anything,
Is
but
to
most
get
especially
turned-
alcohol, is that it is a quality product. I mean, I do not believe in support local. I believe in support
Yeah.
local if it's good, because I've had a lot of local small beers brewed by small breweries that were absolute and utter shit and infected and awful and terrible. And I do not support that. And I am not okay with that, because not only does it give craft beer a bad name, it gives local a bad name. It gives beer a bad name. So I am in very much both sides of this. Yes, I don't believe in the way Budweiser spends their money and some of the things that they as a company support. However, Budweiser makes a very clean, delicious, well-made lager, and you have to support and appreciate the product that they put out. Am I going to order that? No, it's not what I drink. I would much rather have a craft lager, from a brewer that I know and respect and, makes a clean lager. And I go back and forth about this all the time, but I don't know. I'm not going to get on my soapbox. We haven't even gotten to the interview yet. This is what happens when I don't record for a couple episodes. It all gets
You
pent
have
up.
so much that's
And
pent
it-
up. Yep. Well, now we go to the cold read.
Here we go.
God.
Here we are.
This might get cut out.
I don't know. It might not. I tried to skim it before we started. So Brewers Association may...
Hold on. That is such a fucking millennial thing to say. It's not.
Well, it's only because I just found this article before we started recording.
I just read the headline, guys.
I just read the headline.
No, I wanted to try to skim it, but I just found this article right before we started recording. So the Brewers Association might change to allow cannabis and everything into it. Molson Coors, of course, is jumping on the bandwagon. They expect to...
Did you know, by the way, Molson is the oldest brewery in North America?
I feel like I have.
That was a
before.
trivia question at a brewery on Saturday.
Yeah.
And they're like, I automatically, of course, said Yuengling because they're the oldest in the United States.
Yeah.
But Molson is the oldest in North America. Fun
Cool.
fact. I did not know.
Good to
Sorry.
know.
Now you know.
Molson Coors expects to, quote, secure a meaningful share of the cannabis-infused beverage market when edibles are legalized in Canada. So we're looking up north, but this is according to the company's CEO. They will be in a ready-to-go position and, one of the first on the playing field as the market opens up, said Mark R. Hunter, I'm so glad his name isn't Mike, in a conference call with analysts after the company released its third quarter earnings report on Wednesday. Recreational cannabis products such as dried flower and pre-rolled joints became available for legal purchase in Canada on October 17th, but edibles won't be legalized until next year, so they're waiting for that to happen. Estimates suggest that the cannabis market would be valued somewhere between $7 billion and $10 billion, he said, with about 20 to 30% of that coming from cannabis-infused, non-alcoholic beverages. Even if one assumes the low end of the projections, the beverage segment will be worth about $1.5 billion. So they're looking to jump onto that, which I feel like Canada is the right market for them to try that. But I wanted to quick get that blurb in there.
I'm curious as cannabis becomes legal in more and more places. Like, I'm not really familiar with like the regulation that's in place. Like with alcohol, there's a lot of regulation. You got to be 21. You can't drink and drive. You can't do this. You can't do that. I don't know, because that seemed like a legal minefield you have to get through in order for legalization to happen. And I don't know. I have no idea how it works in the places.
You can't drive intoxicated.
Yeah,
Doesn't
it's the same thing. Yeah,
include
but I just mean in
alcohol
general,
and drugs?
Like there's so many
there's like
different-
DUI and DWI and all that stuff.
I just don't know. I mean, it's been legalized in so many places the past couple of years, and I just realized just now as you were reading about that I have no idea like what the actual laws regulating it are.
Well, that brings us to where we are. We're at Kurant, so we were talking about beer. A little bit of cider got thrown in there, but
and cannabis,
and cannabis, of course, because hey, 2018. Now it's a beautiful spot that you have here in
very
Fishtown.
Instagrammable,
very Instagrammable, as we've already mentioned. But it's beautiful. It's the exposed brick wall, and downstairs. I like that you have that glass door looking into. Do you call it a brewery? Is that what?
No one knows. It's still an unnamed space. Yeah, it's not a brewery. So technically, we're just winemakers, and it's a winery, but that's confusing. So we just say production space.
That's a good way to put that. There is a storied history of Kurant, and this spot only opened up a couple of months ago. So how long has Kurant actually been in existence?
So we're in year 5 since we founded the company, and year 4 of sales. It took us a year to do all the super fun bullshit before you actually get to sell anything. So
that'd be a good name for a podcast. That's what you should call your podcast. Super fun bullshit.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. So year 5. It took us 5 years to open our own tap room. We were mostly homeless before that. So yeah, we opened this space at the end of June this year.
Cool. So before you had this space, your production facility, where were you cidering out of?
So we've been doing sort of gypsy production with various different breweries around the area. So when we first started, our first sort of home was with Round Guys in Lansdale. Mm-hmm. We sort of rented some space from those guys. We put in our own equipment and tanks, and basically I would go in late at night and be a cider elf and do all of our production stuff like after they were done their brew day and all their production process. So we started there. We only lasted at Round Guys for maybe 9 months. They were just obviously super small. If you've ever been in that space, it is tiny. It's hard to fit a brewery in there, let alone some extra space for us to make cider. So we needed some more space to grow as we were quickly realizing we were actually going to sell things. So then we moved up to Free Will, rented space from those guys in their giant building that they're still...
Yeah, they have a shit ton of room there.
Yeah.
But John keeps filling it up. Every time you go, there's more and
yeah,
more
there's
equipment.
another section, yeah.
Uh-huh.
They're slowly taking over that entire building that they're in, that industrial building. So at the time, they had a lot of, not a lot of extra space, but enough that they were willing to rent some to us. So we moved our system up there, and then we started also producing on their big, giant stuff that they make their beers on. So we've been doing that since almost 3 years ago now. So that's been our sort of production home for the last 3 years.
So the main production and I assume the canning and bottling all takes place at Free Will. What gets done here at this location?
Yeah, so Free Will is basically our main production space. So anything like you would see of ours that's in cans out in the wild, at your distributor, bottle shop, or kegs that are at restaurants, that all comes out of Free Will's building. And then here, Fishtown, we built and set up to sort of be our new test lab.
We like that, test lab.
Yeah, so basically we put in our small system. We moved it down from Free Will, put in our 9-barrel system here at Fishtown, and we're just making one-off ciders, basically. Everything we make here pretty much stays in the building. We have started doing a little bit of like production, distribution out of here, but not really our main goal. It's really just to make weird shit and see if people like it.
Well, we have a few ciders in front of us, which are your 4 core ciders. Which should we sip on first?
Core.
There's a lot of those in
Hashtag
the
only.
cider world. Yeah.
Oh, wait till we get to the game.
Joe's like, I've heard them all.
Yeah.
Please stop.
Sure.
So which should we taste first?
So I would start with the Bees. That's our
Bees?
cider with honey. I get this question a lot. It is not a Cider.
Cider?
It is not a mead. It is not
Oh, right.
any of those fermented honey products. It is a cider with honey.
The bee underneath.
Yeah.
Oh, that smells like honey.
Right,
Yes.
that one.
Oh my gosh, I don't even want to drink it. I just want to smell it.
Oh, that's good.
Oh,
I'm sure somewhere along the
holy
way
crap.
we've probably had this one. You can this one, right?
Yeah, this is our oldest product. This is sort of what we started with way back.
Cider has not always been this good. Let's be honest, right? Or have I just been missing out on something?
A little of both. I would say there's always been phenomenal ciders being produced in the U.S., definitely around the world, obviously. It's just they weren't getting... They didn't have legs. They didn't travel far from where they were being made. Pennsylvania was basically a cider desert because of some awful legislation up until as recently as 2 years ago. So if you lived in Pennsylvania and didn't specifically seek out cider, you weren't going to accidentally find good stuff or be exposed
sense.
You're just going to have
to the best.
Woodchuck and Angry Orchard at
Yeah,
the
yeah.
bars and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
So besides apples, obviously, and honey, what else would be in this cider?
That's it. Just apples, honey, and yeast. That's all we use to make bees.
Now, is this a blend of apples or is it one apple?
No, that's a blend. All of our stuff that goes in the cans, we use a blend that is what falls in the category called modern ciders. It's like it can really be any apple. So it can be dessert apples, baking apples, stuff you'd be familiar with at the grocery store, a little bit of heirloom varietals that you might not be familiar with mixed in. It can be pretty much anything. So we use that base blend for most of our ciders. We do very large production just because we can get a lot of those apples. They're readily available. So we can produce juice in a very large quantity.
Are you able to... Is it easier to get consistency when you blend apples than it would be if you use one apple?
Yeah, definitely. You can use more or less of any given variety depending on what time of year the apple was harvested. It's going to have different sugar, acid levels, different tannin levels. So, yeah, if you're using a lot of different kinds of apples, you can blend them and sort of hit a baseline a little bit easier.
Do a lot of your apples come from Pennsylvania, since we are such a large apple producing state?
Yep, yeah. Pennsylvania is the 4th largest apple producer in the country, and we get a good 95% plus of our apples from PA. Come from Adams County out in Gettysburg, Erie County up in the upper Northwest, and throughout the rest of the state.
We were just down near Gettysburg last weekend, and we stopped by Mike Weiser's farm.
Oh, yeah.
Our listeners will know Mike. He is a rep for Free Will.
He's also crashed the podcast
He's
a number of times.
crashed the podcast a number of times. Really overall good guy. But he has...
I love all people.
There he is. He had, a dozen different varieties? I'm looking at Rich like he's listening. Of apples. And I was like, I want to try them all, because there were apples I had heard of and apples I'd never heard of. So they were all the same price per pound. So I just took a big bag and I took one from each.
Right.
So I'm like, yes, I can see which ones I like the best.
Yeah, that's cool. Well,
But I don't remember which one
which ones are which.
They're not labeled right.
You should have put little stickers
I
on them.
know.
That's a very good point.
Such an idiot. But I've been eating a couple of them every day, and they're all so good. And, and I know it, but I guess I've never appreciated truly how different apples can be.
Yeah, well, you get
you
that
always say sweet
homogenized
and
stuff
tart
in the store.
and,
yeah,
and you read those things, like they say what they're good for and what they taste like, and but man, and especially this time of year, and being in this area, everyone needs to go out and eat some freaking apples right now.
Eat
'Cause
some
they're
apples,
amazing.
people.
Yeah, this is definitely the time to get out there and see what's available. Most people are exposed to maybe 3 or 4 apple varieties throughout their whole life. That's just what you're going to get. There's so many more. I have a book that has 200 or 300 different varieties.
Good Lord.
Wow. I think I'd rather drink a lot of them, though.
So is this the time of year that I don't even know how to ask this question. So I assume that you don't actually purchase the apples. I assume you have someone that presses them for you?
Yeah, so it works a lot of different ways. So for our core brands that we make a lot of liquid, we work with a brokerage house locally. They purchase the apples and also press them for us and deliver us the fresh juice. So that is pretty hands-off for me. I just tell them what I want for acid levels and sugar levels and different varieties. Also what I'm sort of willing to pay. So they try and hit those numbers, and then they deliver us the fresh juice. So
in that pressing process, is there anything in the process that can affect those things, or is it just the apples you pick? Because you're just basically squeezing them, right? There's nothing you can do in that process that changes the outcome.
Not so much. It's pretty standard as far as pressing goes. You sort of it's called scratting, when you basically throw the apple into what equates to a garbage disposal. It turns it into like a paste, and then you press out that. So there's not much process wise that's going to change what you're going to get juice wise out of the apple. It's not like when you brew, if you raise or lower the temperature of your mash or something like that, you're going to get different sugars or whatever. It's pretty much whatever's there is there.
Right. So you can be pretty confident when you're getting just juice from a broker that as long as you have the varieties you want, what your product you're going to get.
Yeah, they get really close. And then what's also different from brewing is once we have a juice, if it's a little bit off, we can adjust the acids or adjust the sugars pre and post fermentation. So it's a lot different process than brewing.
Now, this could be a pretty dumb question. You cut me off earlier.
I feel like we all have
I know.
20
I
questions.
have a million
floating
things
in
I
our
want
head
to ask
because
him.
we know nothing about cider.
Yeah, exactly. So you'd mentioned earlier yeast. Obviously, you need the yeast to turn it into alcohol. In beer, obviously, different yeasts will get you different flavors. Is that true? Of cider, do you use different yeasts, or is the flavor differential mostly on the apple or the adjuncts?
It is definitely yeast dependent for flavor profile. Most of the stuff we distribute, right now I can say that all of the stuff in cans uses a London ale yeast from the beer world. So that's the same thing you would find in most beers of English variety. So that's what we use for a lot of our core brands, and then we do a ton of different yeasts here at Fishtown, or have used a lot of different stuff over the years.
Have you ever used champagne yeast?
Yeah, I don't like it personally.
Okay.
Yeah, it's good if you want to make a cider and age it for a really long time, like multiple years. But other than that, it's really aggressive on the juice. It strips out a lot of the top end notes of the flavor profile when the cider's young. That stuff does come back eventually, but it's really aggressive on the sort of front of fermentation.
Yeah, if you plan on doing one, the idea that comes to my mind is you could do like a New Year's cider and have the champagne yeast on it. I would love drinking that on New Year's.
Yeah. It has a place, but most people don't have the patience for that,
Right.
especially like homebrewers. So when I advise people on homebrewing ciders, I point them towards mostly beer yeasts that are going to be it's going to give you a product that can turn around in as few as a few weeks. Some of our brands, from juice to package can be as little as 3 weeks. So.
Wow.
So before we get too far, let's talk about juice to package. Once you receive the fresh juice and before adding the yeast, what is the process in between?
Turning on the pump. That's pretty much it.
I like it. It's simple.
Yeah. No, brewers hate me for that. I get so much shit from my brewer friends. They're slaving on like a 6-hour brew day, and they got to grain out the mash tun, and we literally just transfer juice from tanker trucks into fermenters, and then that's it.
You don't even have to boil it or anything?
No, there's no hot side process at all.
Wow, I love it. It's so much more like, almost like baking. Like,
No.
We're like it's more about like the ingredients, and not so much the like minor changes in the process. You you pick what you want to go into it, and then you ferment it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot
possibly age it.
A lot of post fermentation sort of adjustments. So you're not super concerned. You want to be like in the right ballpark when you start fermentation, but if it goes a little left or a little right, you can put it back down the middle at the end.
Wow.
So which cider should we sip on next?
Let's go with the rosé, a rosé.
Ooh, hibiscus and green.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I've noticed more and more different, obviously breweries, because that's all I really know, but more places are using hibiscus. Is there a reason that there's a rise in including it, or is it just like I'm paying more attention now?
It's more available now, perhaps?
Yeah, I don't know. I used to see it a lot in like Saisons specifically.
Ooh.
I don't know why it's become more popular lately. Maybe just in general the rosé trend, the pink trend. That's what drives the color in that cider is just hibiscus.
It's a hard flavor to work with, I would imagine, because it's hard to get one that tastes good. I forget where it was, but somebody had a beer with hibiscus in it, and it was awful. It just tasted like a bag of potpourri that I was just... Yeah. But this is delicious. I love it. It's not overpowering. You get pretty much equal levels of the apple and the hibiscus.
It's a little sweeter than the first one, but it's really nice.
But the green tea balances that out, because I've had some hibiscus beers that have been... And I don't know that it would be the hibiscus. Is hibiscus sweet on its own? Would it provide a sweetness?
I always figured it was like tart.
Because the sweetness is probably more from the apples.
The hibiscus is really obviously floral
right.
In its characteristics, but it can brighten some of the high notes in the flavor profile, so that can come off as perceived sweetness a little bit. Yeah.
So, at what point in the process do you add these adjuncts, the hibiscus and the tea?
So those are both added post-fermentation for a rosé. We ferment it out dry, and then basically the tank gets cycled with those in an adjunct tank for about 4 hours in a cold steep process.
So almost like using a hop back, sort of?
Yeah, very similar to that process, yeah.
Very cool. I really enjoy that.
That's really nice.
This is one of those moments where my inability to consume large amounts of alcohol makes me super, super sad because...
I guess I got to come back.
I know. I'll be back in 6 months.
Steph's going to have a list of all the different places she needs to go back to and drink
6
more.
months from now, I'm just going to be drunk.
You're just going to be
30 days in a row.
6 months from now, it's not going to take as much.
That's true.
So I got to ask, what got you into making cider? Like, I love apples. I've always loved apples. It's one of my favorite things to eat since I was a kid, which you wouldn't guess considering my size and my lack of eating fruits normally.
Well, it does come in pie form.
That's true. It does.
Yeah, I'm not exactly a small human.
But like I never would have thought like, oh, let's make a business out of this, and especially once I learned about alcohol. What got you to this point?
I got a job I started homebrewing. I'll say that first. That's what started it way back. Someone got me a homebrew kit for Christmas one year. I don't know. I think I was like 22 or something. Just started homebrewing with some buddies and didn't really think much of it for a long time, and then got sort of back into it after a hiatus, and ended up getting a job at Keystone Homebrew locally, and worked there for 5 years basically. Once I started working at the homebrew store, it was like, all right, what can I ferment? What does it make? And I need to know everything about that. So yeah, I started making a ton of beer, brewing an insane amount of beer, but also started making ciders and wines and anything else fermentable. So that's kind of where it started. As far as like the business goes, silly me, I thought the local beer scene was overcrowded 5 years ago.
Yeah.
You mean when there was half the amount of breweries there are now?
Yeah.
Right.
We'll never get to 4,000 breweries.
Yeah, when there was like 6 breweries around here, I think. I was like, oh, that's too much competition for me. I'm gonna try to make some cider.
That's back when we started the podcast, and we could be like, oh man, we might run out of breweries to go to.
Oh, I remember
Right.
having that conversation.
Yeah.
Right.
Nope.
Yeah, so I knew I wanted to ferment something professionally and start a business, and I really loved everything. I could have easily started a winery or a brewery or anything, but cider was really up and coming at the time. It was kind of in a big explosion nationally, and it seemed like the right time to jump into that. So just went head first and put in a very large system in my basement, much against my wife's advisement. Started making a ton of liquid at home and started the company.
I did a little bit of reading about cider, particularly when I was putting together the game. And one of the things that came up, and I don't know if this is still true, I imagine it's changing, but finding apples that are, because, culinary apples are different from apples you want to use for cider a lot of the time. So finding the varieties that you want for cider, and you said you go through a brokerage, so it seems like there's more and more channels now. Has that changed significantly?
Yeah, it's getting better. Even when we started 5 years ago, it was more of a challenge to find liquid. So we have a bit of a handicap compared to the brewers. The brewers can open a catalog and make a phone call, and they can have several tons of whatever grain they want showed up. But we don't have that luxury. We're stuck to a seasonal harvest product to make our end product, and then also they turn on a tap to fill their mash tuns. We don't use water. Everything is 100% juice. So we're always struggling to find the right ingredients, basically. So there are a lot of farms locally that are growing really excellent heirloom varietal apples that I would love to make cider with. Unfortunately, most of those farms also make their own ciders. So they're not necessarily willing to give up their crops to us, where we don't have our own orchards and farm. Every now and then I can convince them to sell me a little bit of something, but for the most part, we're still just sort of struggling to find the right apples. I'm always looking out for, someone says, "Oh, I know a guy with a couple of trees." I'll go look at a couple of trees.
Yeah.
Anywhere I can find an apple, I'll go look at.
Go check it out. That's cool. Yeah. Another thing I came across was and this is big in the UK, and I think cider has been a big thing there for longer. And a lot of places are farms, and they're like hyper local, and they grow the apples and they sell crops and other things, but they also make their cider.
Yeah.
And a lot of ciders you come across over there are that kind of thing, where it's like, this is Farmer George's cider that he makes with his apples that he grows. It's a very different sort of process or pipeline.
Well, beer is the same way over there. I mean, you're in
Yeah.
you're in a town. You drink the beer that was made in that town,
Right,
and that's the
right.
only place you can
Yeah.
get that beer.
But it's very rare to find something like that in beer where like they also produce all the ingredients right there.
No,
you know?
you're right. Would you ever consider purchasing land to start your own orchard or partnering with a
Oh,
farm?
man, yeah, I get that question a lot. I am no farmer.
Yeah, that is. Whew.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to do that either.
Yeah, I have a great relationship with a lot of the local cider owners who happen to also be orchardists and have farms and land, and I see all the stuff they go through to grow the crops, and I don't know if I want to do that. That sounds hard.
That sounds hard. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, we are very lucky to be here in Pennsylvania, and we do have some of the best soil and farming land in the country. So I feel like if you could find the right partner that perhaps would be that you could bring on, that would be willing to take over that end of it.
Yeah, someone who works way harder than I do.
Way harder than all four of us combined,
Right.
probably.
Probably.
Yeah.
No, it's in
Probably.
our growth plan to at some point come up with some land and stick some stock in the ground. It's a little rough because if we got land and say there were no apples on it and you've planted them, it's going to take 4 to 5 years
Yeah.
to get anything. So
Wow. Yeah.
it's part of our long-term objectives is to most likely partner with someone who already has existing stock. We would love to have our own orchards to pull from for even if it was just small batch stuff.
Yeah.
That would be amazing.
Well, speaking of which, and how many apples does it take to make a cider? Like, I have no idea.
How many licks does it take?
I was gonna.
Right.
But like you said, you said you'll go look at a couple of trees. Like from a couple of trees, how big of a batch can you? And you don't even add any wood or anything.
Yeah, there's no additives. So Angry Orchard used to run ads that say there's 2 apples in every bottle, which actually calculates to be about right.
Okay.
So that's 12 ounces of liquid. Normally, we're looking at getting. Most of the time, you'll buy apples by the bushel, and we'll calculate about 2 to 3 gallons per bushel. So that's those baskets you see them like if you go to pick your own.
Yeah. I'm picturing it. Yeah. Okay.
So a bushel will get you about 2 to 3 gallons, depending on the apple and the time of harvest and all that stuff.
And
So-
is that measured
That's
by?
pretty much if you think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
is-
apples are.
There's a lot of liquid in an apple.
Yeah.
A
Well,
lot
I mean,
of
it's
liquid,
fruit. It's
yeah.
mostly liquid.
Yeah.
It's mostly water, really.
Right.
Is
Well,
that measured
a banana
by?
is a fruit, and it's not mostly water.
It's also radioactive.
What?
It is. You didn't know that?
No.
Yeah, bananas are radioactive. Like if you eat like an amount of bananas that no human could possibly eat, you would actually get like radiation sickness.
Right.
I'm game.
Yeah, let's try it. But are they measured then by weight? Like a bushel of apples isn't like 12 apples. It's a certain weight or volume of apples?
It's a spatial measurement.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Do you ever think you're going to do, or do you do, like a hot cider during the winter? Because like one of my favorite things to do is buy cider at the grocery store, heat it up, and like sit and all bundled up,
The
watching
mulling
something.
spices.
Pull a little vodka in it and pretend it's like,
Yeah.
This is cider. It counts.
Yeah, we do that here actually right now. You can
Sweet.
get spice, which we'll taste here shortly. We do spice in the crock pot or whatever you call those commercially. I don't know. I don't run kitchens. The round warm me up thingy.
Crock pot is
round
correct.
Warm me up thing.
Yeah. We throw spice in there, and then it comes with it's like 11 ounces of spice cider with 1 shot of whiskey mixed in.
Oh, interesting. And we should clarify, spice is the name of one of your ciders.
Yes.
So you're not talking about like spices. You're talking
No.
about the cider itself
Yeah.
with a shot of whiskey.
I also, speaking of whiskey, I also noticed you had on your board downstairs that you kind of do like a citywide of your own.
Sure. Yep.
Oh, I saw
And
that
it
too.
was
yeah.
bees with whiskey, right? Or
Yep.
there's one that you have with tequila too, right?
Yeah, the earth. Yeah.
What whiskey do you use?
So we get whiskey from Kinsey here in the neighborhood.
Ah,
Yeah, or New Liberty, I think is who makes that.
Oh, guys,
Uh-oh.
spice is freaking
Oh, are we
amazing.
too- let's try
all right,
spice.
all right.
By the way, I think Rich is sitting back there tallying the number of sips you're taking.
No, he's telling me it's time for my circulation walk. I'm going to stand up.
Well, there's some slack on your mic cable. You got this. I love
That
the
is
smell
my
of-
favorite so far.
Oh my
I love
god,
the
this
smell.
smells. I haven't tasted it yet. It smells so good.
There's just something so comforting about
Oh wow. Oh,
apple
that's,
cider.
Wow, that's really good. So what is in this? What's the spice and spice?
So that is cinnamon, nutmeg, allspice, sweet orange peel, and brown sugar.
It feels like a liquid apple pie.
It kind of does. Well, it reminds me of wassail
Yes.
a little bit. Yeah.
Yes.
But without the clove.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I try to stay. It took me a long time to come up with that spice blend. Some of those things like cloves and star anise, and they're just too aggressive. They're just too much. Even in light touches, they overpower things. So we came up with that blend, and that's our winter seasonal. We do a summer and a winter seasonal biannually. We did spice last year, and I thought I was going to have to come up with a whole new cider for this winter, and everybody was like, no, just make spice again.
No. It's
this is
perfect.
great. It's really good.
It's so perfect.
And like you say, adding something like anise or clove, like I think you would lose the apple.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the heart of it.
It's going to
you
get
know?
buried.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
so well balanced. It's so smart. I want more of it.
Do you have this in round warmy uppy thingies now?
Yes, we do.
I might have to get some of that before.
Yeah.
Rounds warmy uppy thing.
Rich wants to try this one. I'm sure he's going to like it.
Joe has officially come up with my most favorite phrases from any guest.
Warm me up, you think?
The rest of you need to step up your game.
Oh man, call to action.
Shots fired.
Even Rich tried it.
I assumed Rich would like this.
Yeah.
He'd probably like all of them, actually. They're not beer, yeah.
We talked a little bit about the cider version of the BA, which I cannot remember all the letters you said before.
Yeah, USACM, United States Association of Cider Makers.
That's too much to remember.
Yeah.
But there's also a Pennsylvania cider guild,
Not as
correct?
snappy as BA.
No, in more than one way.
Yeah, right. There is, yes, the Pennsylvania Cider Guild. Yeah, or the PCG as we call it.
You down with PCG?
Yeah.
You know me.
It was too easy. It was right there.
Yeah, so the Pennsylvania Cider Guild is an organizing body we started 3 years ago now, I think. Basically, there was no statewide representation or association for cider makers. It pretty much fell under the Winemakers Association. They have a better name than that I can't think of right now. But pretty much all of the cider makers just did whatever the winemakers told them to do, and the cider makers were paying a tax that goes to viniculture, basically, goes to grape research and development, which does cider makers absolutely no good. So basically, we formed this association to get our own representation in Harrisburg, get those taxes sort of fixed to benefit apple growers, and get a better representation across the state through lobbying Harrisburg and trying to get some legislation changed, which we did pretty effectively. So in the short existence of the Cider Guild, we have made a very large impact across the state through a lot of hard work.
Are the majority of cider makers in Pennsylvania part of the PCG?
So the majority, no. A lot of them are still with the Wine Association only, just because they also happen to be wineries, so they feel like they are represented. But we do have the majority of places that only make cider, exclusive cider producers. And that's really our target demographic, who we want to reach out to and help and band together with. So that's what we spend most of our time doing, not necessarily working with the wineries. Most of the time it's just cider.
So I wonder, and this makes me think of a twofold thing. You talked about like getting legislation to benefit cider makers, and I wonder, like, one, is that easier? Do you think that like the government locally is more receptive to cider makers because of the success of craft beer, and also like what is the cider drinker market? Because I feel like you come to a place like this strikes me as like a little brewery, but it's a cidery. So, like, do you find that a lot of your clientele, a lot of people who get into cider, are people who are coming from the craft beer world?
Yeah, so historically speaking, most cider enthusiasts come from the wine world. They're usually white wine drinkers.
Okay.
That's the more prominent crossover. But now with the proliferation of cider makers across the U.S. and more brands being available to consumers, we're getting more draw from the craft beer side. It's just a craft beverage, with the explosion of beer and cider and spirits and everything craft, basically. We're drawing more market from all of those beverage segments, not just wine anymore.
Yeah, because you see, like, a lot of beer fests, you'll see more and more. Like, I know you guys have been in a lot of fests.
Yeah, we do a ton of beer fests.
Yeah, and you'll see, like, a couple of cider makers. I would say cidery. Is that a word, cidery?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
I always want to say cidery. I feel like that's the appropriate word.
Speaking of beer
That's what
fest,
FreeCon. It's FreeCon Cidery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought he said it was Freycon.
Freycon.
Oh, FreeCon. Crap, that's right.
So speaking of beer fest, Wayne earlier, when we were on the way here, I was like, hey, have we ever had Joe on the show? I'm like, I don't know if we did. I know we talked about it before we started. And then it hit me, and I remembered where we met you. It was a couple of years ago, the German Beer Fest, like at the German Society, because they had that basement that held the cheese and all the cideries that were there.
Yeah.
And that's
Oh,
like
that
one
basement. Oh,
that was such a great
Oh, the cheese. I love
cheese.
cheese.
Was so good. You do
That
love cheese.
spread.
Yeah. Yeah.
You should see how much
I was
cheese
at that
he buys
event,
at the
but
grocery
not at
store.
the
We
same
go to the
time we
grocery
were.
store. I buy, like, seriously, like, half my groceries are different kinds of cheese.
Yeah. I hope you don't mind. I stole some of your white cheddar that was in the
That's fine.
fridge.
It's really good, isn't it?
Really fucking
Oh
good.
my
Yeah.
gosh.
But yeah, I remember that's where we had met you, and I guess you probably had bees there, and probably another one that I can't quite remember. But it was cool to see cider represented in that way at such a traditional beer fest.
Yeah,
because
yeah.
Germans are very particular about what they drink.
Yeah, no, Marnie's great, who puts that event together. She really loves cider and cheese. So the cider and cheese cave was sort of her idea, and it went great. We actually did it that one time, and then she invited us, but her email went to my spam filter.
Oh no!
Oh, no. Oh.
So I saw it was happening whatever weekend it happened this year, and I was like, man, I would have really liked to go to that. So I emailed her, and she was like, I sent you an email months ago, and I just didn't hear from you. So that was on me, my bad. But yeah, that's a fantastic event. And yeah, cider and cheese go together super, super well.
Do you ever do any kind of pairings here?
We do. We're just getting into more sort of classes and events here. We spent 2 months sort of figuring out how to run a restaurant. So now that we're sort of in a groove, we're planning some more stuff to use the space here. Yeah.
Did I see you serve just hot dogs?
Yeah, I saw the hot
Was
dog
that-
roller. I saw the round hottie heaty uppy thingies.
Yeah, right. That's the long round hottie heaty uppy thingy. Yeah, so we do hot dogs. Not just hot dogs. There's all kinds of different varieties. We do a chili dog. We have a hot dog that goes on a pretzel roll with provolone cheese.
That's a very Pennsylvania hot dog.
Yeah, it's called the Philly Special.
Nice.
Yeah.
So yeah, we do a bunch of different hot dogs. We have some other stuff, pickled vegetables.
Do you have a veggie hot dog?
We do, yeah.
I
Yeah.
approve.
There you go.
I approve.
We actually keep rotating brands because I don't know. People always recommend different ones to us, and then we try them.
Aldi makes a really good vegan hot dog.
Do they
Aldi,
really?
yeah.
Aldi, yes. Believe it or not.
Nice.
Probably
Theirs have
super
been the
cheap.
best.
Surprised, really.
Yeah,
And the cheapest, of course.
Although they don't have good turkey bacon. Just throwing that out there.
their lobster's great.
That's good.
Oh.
So if you have chili dogs, do you make the chili in house?
Yes,
Okay. Do you use a cider in the chili?
we don't.
Okay.
We haven't really jumped into doing that here, incorporating the cider into the food. It's in most of the cocktails on our menu.
There's
So
cocktails. I didn't know there were cocktails.
yeah, we do it all.
Oh, that's awesome.
We also have local wines.
Even better.
So yeah, we do have a little bit of everything. So if you're not a huge cider fan, we keep 4 PA beers on draft all the time that rotate.
Oh, cool.
Do cocktails, all kinds of stuff.
What beers do you have on tap now?
Right now is Love City Lager.
I had it last night, and oh god, it was so great.
Steph is so sad. She wants to drink it so bad. She wants a pint of it right
so
now.
solid,
Sorry, Steph. We all feel very bad for you.
There's a Stable 12 Saison. I forget which one it is. Something from Brewery Ours in South Philly.
Oh, ours is great. Yeah.
They're right around the corner from us, and I haven't been there since we recorded there.
That is blasphemous.
I know.
Yeah,
I
it's
know.
so
I
good.
know,
They are
I
such
know.
awesome people and make such great beer, and you could literally walk there.
I could
and
stumble home.
That's pretty rough, yeah. No excuses.
I think
on
I
that.
haven't
know.
been there because it's so dangerous that I would stumble home.
Yeah.
So it's okay to stumble home now and then.
That's the problem. It would be more than now and then. 4
Yeah.
nights a week.
Basically, for our beer selection, we're on draft at a very large number of local breweries or in cans at their brew pubs. So anybody who's serving current in their brewery, we basically reciprocate now and rotate them into our draft lines.
Cool.
Do you think that you would do a cider on tap at like a concert venue? I only say this because the Fillmore's right down the street, more or less.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think that'd be
they
really cool.
have an okay selection
Yeah.
of beers.
Yeah,
We were
Well,
just there.
they had after the party
They did, and that was great.
at the Menzinger show.
That was pretty
They
specific
did not
for
have that
show,
at the
though.
garbage show.
Yeah, imagine that. But you
But
don't
yeah,
really get,
they
like-
could use an awesome.
Yeah, sure, they'll have bottles
Down
of
the
like
street
Angry
craft
Orchard
cider.
or something. But if
Yeah.
you're right down the street, you are the hometown cider.
Right. We are on at, I want to say Union Transfer.
Oh, okay. We're
it's-
going to be there soon.
Yeah, one
I
of
was there last night.
one of those venues over there. So the thing about selling to those places is they will sell a lot of your product, but they also won't pay your retail price.
Oh,
So there's a lot of backdoor deals that go on to get at places like that. So we're still small. We have a little wiggle room to get into some places, but we can't just give the farm away.
of course.
Yeah.
To be on at the Fillmore.
Yeah, I would imagine that like getting on tap at a place like that, like a venue like that, is very different from getting on at like the
the
local
bar
tap
across the
room
street.
or even
Yeah.
like a local beer bar. Like that's just like a different
Yeah.
sort of.
Well, and there's no
game.
motivation on their side because I don't think at this point people would go to venues expecting
yeah.
to
I mean,
have
yeah,
that.
and a lot of those
selection.
places are going to charge you, and regardless of what they're willing to pay you,
Yeah,
they're going to
right,
charge
right.
you way more just
Yeah.
because it's a venue.
Well, to be fair, speaking of Union Transfer, I had a couple of beers there last night. They were $7 a piece. Like to me, that's a
That's-
normal
Union
price.
actually,
for-
I was at
right,
Union
right.
Transfer a few years ago, and there were some good beers that were reasonably
Yeah,
priced.
I had Yards. I had. I'm surprised they didn't have Love City on, but oh shit, what else did I have? I don't know. I got drunk. I forget what I had.
Yeah, right.
Let's be honest. Free concert, buy the booze, cool.
So we
Yeah.
have one more core beer.
This one
of the
smells
core
familiar.
cider.
Oh my gosh, that's
Yeah.
Mosaic, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yes.
Ah,
I love
I
Mosaic.
feel like back in my comfort zone for a minute.
Well, it's not Simcoe. Then you'd
No,
be
that's
curled up
true.
in a ball.
Yeah.
But
No. Simcoe.
so our first dry hop cider.
Not good in cider.
Not
Not
cat
good
piss and
in-
apples.
Not good in most things.
Well,
Wayne loves Simcoe.
so this is Earth, right?
This is Earth, yeah.
Oh,
that's nice.
That's such
Wow.
a meta sentence. This is Earth.
this is
Yeah,
This is
right.
Earth.
that takes that hop to a whole different place.
Welcome to Earth.
Oh, I love the aroma.
Welcome to Earth. Is that what you just said?
That is what I said.
Oh,
That is
It's
wow.
so, like it's good. I was going to say it's weird, but I want to preface it by saying it is good. I like it.
Okay, get out.
You're, no,
yeah, right.
it's like you said. It's a whole different place that it takes it.
Yeah.
It's there, but it's
Like-
also it's a cider.
Well,
and I would never assume these two would mix, but they do.
Yeah, and the thing about it that strikes me is that because it's dry hop, so you get the hops in the aroma,
Right.
Like, super
Oh.
strong. Like you could smell this and be like, oh, it's an IPA, but then you taste it, and it's just I know I've had hopped ciders before. I'm sure we've had them together, but it's really interesting to get the hop character in something that's not a beer because it still tastes like a cider as well.
Yeah, so most hop ciders you're going to find out commercially are also pretty sweet, and that sweetness will really change the perception of the hops. So because Earth is super dry, you're preserving the hops in its totality, basically. So when we dry hop with cider has a much lower pH than beer. So it actually draws completely different notes out of a hop than a beer would. We're getting more of the really high-end notes. So Mosaic and cider is going to be really a lot of apricot, some tangerine, a lot of stone fruit, the bright stuff. So yeah, Mosaic and cider is a totally different experience than it is in beer.
Yeah, it's I don't know how to describe it. Like there's a hop character in the flavor, but it's totally different from what I'm used to.
Like the way they mix in the back end after.
Yeah, and like you said, when you said, I was waiting for you to be like, you'll get a lot of, because I was like, tell me what I'm tasting, please.
Yeah.
But you're right. As soon as you said apricot, like you get that like fleshy fruit character is really nice. Eat a little bit of black pepper, I think.
Yep. Yeah.
It's really good.
So I have a question, but I have to ask you a question before I ask you the question.
Okay.
First of all, do you measure your production of cider in barrels?
We do.
Okay, so for a dry hopped cider like this, what would be your amount of hops per barrel that you would add, and just to compare to like how we would dry hop a beer?
Yeah. So Earth is dry hopped at about 3 pounds per barrel.
Oh wow, that's pretty high. More than I would think that you could be a little light-handed with the hops because of how delicate a cider is, but that's more than I was expecting.
Yeah, it's we've done some really ridiculous dry hop ciders. We did one with Free Will a couple of years ago that we did like 9 pounds per barrel of Amarillo and Citra and something else. Yeah, it's just like liquid fruit at that point. It's basically what IPAs are now, right? I don't know. I don't drink IPAs, but that's what I hear.
Yeah, we've heard about that.
You're at the
too.
right table.
Yeah. So yeah, we were seeing what that kind of really dumb dry hop number does a while ago, and it's basically just liquid fruit. So that's fun, but it's also really expensive. So we only did that once. But yeah, Earth was our number one selling brand for the last 2 years until Rosé beat it this summer.
Oh wow,
Wow.
that's exciting.
Yeah. Now, you had mentioned Free Will, and I know you said
Yes.
earlier that you're still, I guess, brewing or using their production space.
Yes.
Now, you have a couple of collaborations that
We
are coming
do.
out soon with them.
Yeah.
One of which was something was done with that today. Didn't I see pictures of Hannah doing
on
something
on
at
the
Free?
gram, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Oh, is that the
Something
one where
that
it looked
was-
like all bloody?
yeah. She's
Oh,
totally
that was the blood
Instagrammable.
thing?
Isn't that your collaboration, or am
yeah.
I wrong?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, she was doing
It's
it.
like if it is, cut this out.
No, she was doing the fruit edition for that today, yeah.
So tell us about those two collaborations.
So the one that she was working on today is a blackberry milkshake cider. So we have
No, you didn't.
we have totally stolen that. Current is not the first cidery to steal that idea. It's been done across the industry, and we're giving it a go because we also like money. So
Yeah.
it's fun. It's whatever. The cider's a little sweeter. So it's a curveball for us. For me as a cider maker, it's like worlds apart from what I'm used to making. So that's going to be a blackberry milkshake with Calypso and Azaka, I think. I think those are the two hops going in that one.
And that will be released Black Friday.
Black Friday.
Will
yeah.
be released both here and at Free Will?
Yeah, we're going to do, it's going to
cool.
come 16-ounce cans, 4-packs. We'll do a dual release at their tap room and here at our tap room.
And then the other one is a sour, correct?
The other one is a sour, yes.
Makes sense with Free Will.
Yeah, so they basically got juice from us 2 years ago now and put it in a fooder that's in their basement for anybody who's been in their basement.
The food or forest
yeah.
at Free Will.
So we had the cider in there for a super long time, and John started it, and then Nate has since started working there and taken over the cellar. So Nate's been babysitting it, and it got bottled, and it's been bottle conditioning for another 6 or 9 months now. But that's about to get released. That's called Passion. So it's just a sour cider, nothing crazy, no adjuncts. It's just apple juice and bugs.
And you expect that to be released sooner than the
yeah, we're
milkshake.
finishing the label for that one.
You really should have called it apple juice and bugs.
Would that be approved?
Just saying.
Yeah. Probably not, because it would have to have bugs in it.
I want to ask you about this sooner than later. I understand, and we learned about Philly Cider Week, which this was the first, I believe.
It was.
Hank from Fraycon told us about it on our last episode. But I noticed that Kurant was a little absent from the week-long festivities.
We were. Yeah. Man, this is so loaded.
Can of worms.
This is what you
incoming.
paid for, kids.
This is free.
Yeah.
I know.
So Philly Cider Week was started by Amy Hartranft, who's the GM over at Prohibition Taproom, and Tim Queter, who is was until yesterday the GM at Kensington Quarters. I had known Tim a little bit from just being in the neighborhood, selling cider or whatever. He carries a lot of French and Spanish ciders and English stuff at KQ. So he's always had really, really elevated selections. He never really bought current ciders, which is fine. I don't care if people buy our stuff or they don't. That's up to them. It's their bar. So Tim's been great. He's super nice. I go in there to eat every now and then. It's a great spot. I didn't know Amy super well from ProTap, but good reputation in the industry. Elevated buyer, really knows her stuff. So basically they started Philly Cider Week, but they didn't contact any cider producers in Pennsylvania when they did this. And furthermore, put a very narrow definition of what ciders they were going to include in the Philly Cider Week. So basically you had to be a small producer with your own orchards, and none of the ciders they were going to feature could have any adjuncts. So it was 100% apples. Wow. Which basically disqualifies all of the cideries in Philadelphia from participation. They included a few Pennsylvania cideries, I think Big Hill, Fracon, and Plowman were on the initial billing for events. They all have orchards. They all make non-adjuncted ciders. So kind of put a rift in the local cider scene. The Philly cideries kind of got together and said, hey, this is kind of bullshit. Can't really name it Philly Cider Week and then
not have anybody from Philly.
Exclude every Philadelphia producer.
I mean, that's almost like doing a beer fest and saying you have to stick to the purity law. You have to stick to the Reinheitsgebot.
Right.
I would be okay with that.
I would.
I know, but I totally know what you're
think
saying.
of it. Yeah,
you
how many
wouldn't
local breweries
you wouldn't
do that?
call it Philly Beer Week, right?
Yeah,
you would call it like German
Purity Law Fest.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. Right, exactly. So really we didn't really give a shit what was being poured at Philly Cider Week. You can have a festival and do whatever the hell you want. But our issue was that they were calling it Philly Cider Week and billing it as like a local
that's weird
city event while excluding everybody local.
Yeah,
So-
the only local thing is that you would use local places to have your events.
Right,
That's it.
right. So we kind of went on a warpath and started a bunch of fights and basically
Threw flaming apples at them.
Yeah. So they sort of loosened their definition and a little tiny bit. And so like Hale and True Cidery, which is amazing. Everybody should go check it out. They're in South Philly at 7th and South in Bella Vista.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
They're fantastic. So they're good friends of ours. They basically convinced Amy and Tim to have a Philly Cider Week event last Friday where they brought in other PA ciders. So it was Current and Hale and True and Stone and Key from up in Montgomeryville, and who else was there? Dressler Estates, which is out in Downingtown. Original 13, which is here in Kensington, super close to us. But sort of wanted us to bring non-adjuncted ciders. I was not on board with that. I said, if I'm going to participate, I'm going to bring whatever I want. So I brought a hop cider that is a taproom exclusive. So yeah, that was our only involvement in Cider Week. I wasn't willing to sacrifice the principles for which I started a stance to just participate in an event that maybe we would have had one thing here at the tap room. I don't know. Probably bad business, but you got to take a stand sometimes.
Yeah. Is there a subset in the cider community of like purists who are like against adjunct ciders? Is that like
there
a thing?
are? Yeah, it's a very old school, a very wine oriented group. So a lot of the really OG U.S. cider makers are very wine oriented. They only use heirloom varietal apples. They follow that definition. That definition is called heirloom ciders. So yeah, I've had Steve Woods, who's one of the premier cider makers in the country, tell me I didn't know what I was doing because we made a coffee cider one time.
Whoa. That sounds really cool.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
It was awesome. But yeah, so that's definitely a group of the industry who think cider is one very narrow thing. But I was a brewer, and there's no rules in the U.S. in beer. Put whatever the hell you want in it. So
No rules, just right.
yeah. So I would sort of carry that into my cider making, and we do all kinds of weird ciders. And yeah, I just wasn't willing to bend to their insane rules.
Well, here's the thing, though. You're saying weird, but we had a cider with honey in it. We had a cider with hibiscus. We had a cider with cinnamon and nutmeg. None of that's weird.
Yeah, to me, that's normal.
You're not putting fried chicken in your fucking cider. Like, it's not weird.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, nothing, I guess, we put in our ciders is necessarily weird.
But
I mean, that's coming from the world of beer.
But
so,
to a purist,
yeah.
it could be considered weird. I mean,
Yeah.
think about how someone who just drinks lagers. Like our grandfather who drank Budweiser his entire life, and you introduce, like, I took him to Funky Buddha and he had the pina colada beer there.
Yeah.
Now he embraced it and actually loved it, but that is weird to them when, you're drinking just normal, and I'm using air quotes, normal beer or normal cider.
But there's a difference, like in beer, like there is, there's 4 ingredients, Reinheitsgebot, whatever, and that's awesome because the different range of flavors and beers you can get out of just using water, barley, hops, and yeast. But like, there's also people that are putting birthday cake in beers, but then there's people that are putting, like cacao nibs or vanilla beans or
goat brains.
Yeah, but like, there's a difference there. Like, you know what I mean?
I know. I'm being a smart ass.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like there's a difference between being like gimmicky and like just adding like culinarily,
smart ingredients.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, something you would call an ingredient necessarily.
And not
we're not like dumping blue hugs into cider.
Yeah, or Peeps.
Oh, I want that one.
I would try that.
I want blue hugs.
Yeah. Did anybody have that beer? I didn't.
No.
I heard about it.
Yeah.
So if the Philly Cider Week happens again and perhaps they become more welcoming, is it something in the future that you would embrace and be a part of? And you don't have to answer it. You can say, I don't know.
No. It would definitely depend on what direction they took next year. Yes is my answer. I would love to be a part of it and have it shine a light on Philly ciders and do what I think that kind of event can really do for the city. But if it's not run in an open way and very closed off again next year, then I will continue to say mean things about their event and not participate.
That's an interesting point. Have you in the past, or do you see yourself in the future, have you been a part of Philly Beer Week? I mean, it is Beer Week, but I feel like we talked about earlier, I think there's a lot of crossover cider and craft beer.
Yeah, we've been a paid member at Philly Beer Week for the past 4 years.
Yeah.
Well, and I feel like when I heard about Philly Cider Week, I was actually excited knowing what Philly Beer Week is.
Yeah.
I mean, typically it's, these
there are no
breweries,
restrictions like that in Philly Beer Week.
They try to bring their rarest and craziest beers there, and it's usually stuff that you can't normally get.
Yeah.
So I was excited about the idea of a cider week, but then I was sort of bummed when I looked more into it and looking at the events, and I was like, because I want to learn more about the cider makers here in Philadelphia and in Pennsylvania, and I want to know about how they're pushing the craft, and there's such a deep beer culture here, and I feel like a lot of the people that would attend these events would also attend beer events, and I think that's what a lot of us look towards and crave. But I don't know.
Yeah,
hopefully
weird.
they'll be more open-minded, and it could turn into something awesome.
We talk a lot about on this show about like the value of traditional styles of beer and how much we enjoy just having a nice clean lager or a whatever the style might be. But at the same time, like you don't you don't shut out, people who are also making things that are a little bit outside of that, people who are experimenting with different things. Like, I feel like there's...
It goes back to if it's a good beer, drink it. If it's a good cider, drink it. If it's a good drink, drink it.
Like coffee and beer, like, seriously, please, yes.
Yeah, totally. Well, coffee and cider.
Yeah, it's such a good,
I
you know what I mean?
Like, yeah.
But yeah, hopefully that changes.
Hopefully.
Yeah, I think it'll be much better next year. The problem with this year was no one knew it was happening. Like no one in the industry knew until they posted on social like a few weeks before the event started, and we were all just like, what the fuck was that?
What is this?
Who's running this, and where did it come from, and why are we getting screwed? So yeah, it was just we got blindsided. It was kind of a mess, and everybody was scrambling, and I just wasn't going to scramble and do something half-assed just to say we did it. I don't know. I just wanted nothing to do with it from the start. I just wanted to make it known that we were not very happy about how that went. And Tim and Amy actually showed up at the Hail and True event, and I talked to them for an hour, not once about Cider Week. A lot about podcasts. So I think it was one of those standoffs. Who was gonna bring it up, and I just wasn't gonna do it. So.
Good.
Want to avoid confrontation?
Yeah.
Talk about your favorite podcast.
Talk about podcasts.
Right.
There's so many of them. Of course, this is everyone's favorite podcast.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. Well, we have a lot that we need to do still, but I feel like it's time for some happy fun
Yeah,
time.
we need to get happy.
Come on, get happy.
Almost.
God, that was so terrible.
Wow.
Do we have to pay for that?
We talked about harmonizing on the way here because we're brothers, and apparently that means we can harmonize better.
Who are they?
They were talking about Hanson.
That's right.
Yeah, it's so weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, anyway, cheers, Internet, and welcome to Happy Fun Time Games, a podcast trivia segment that is clinically proven to keep the doctor away.
Oh, Jesus.
Really?
Oh, we're just getting started, ladies and gentlemen. This is Libation or Fabrication Cider Edition. Oh, yeah.
No one saw that coming.
Everybody's favorite Happy Fun Time game with a twist. You know what? I tried to do... We were talking about weird shit in cider. My first thought was to do a weird in my cider, like we do weird in my beer, but I couldn't find any ciders that had like really outrageous ingredients. It was all like honey and fruit and stuff that's like not that weird, so I didn't think it was like interesting to talk about. So I fell back on the tried and true Libation or Fabrication, in which I will give you the name of something and you must tell me if that something is a real cider or something that I made up in my head. And we will begin to my left with Dan, and our first cider of the game is Apples to Orangutans. Is that real or fake?
That's gotta be fake.
Dan is saying that's fake, Steph.
It does sound like something you would make up. But I usually always say real because you're lazy. I can't ruin my my trend. I'm going to say real.
Steph is saying real, and finally Joe.
What was it? Apples to orangutan?
Yes.
I'm gonna go real.
Gonna go real.
Yeah.
Dan is the only one.
You can say it.
Try that again. Dan is the only one.
You can say it. Dan's the only one who what, Wayne? Dan's the only one who what? What? What did I do?
I'm waiting.
What did I do? What did I do, Wayne?
To not sound like I'm broadcasting from a bunker.
What did I do, Wayne?
I think he wants you to keep talking.
Do you want me to keep talking? Dan is the only one who was correct.
Fucking right. I'm sorry.
Damn it.
Yes, Apples to Orangutans is not a real cider. It's fairly obvious that apples and oranges have a lot more in common than apples and orangutans. Right? Moving on to our next cider of the game, and Steph's going to guess first on this one, and this one is called Scourge of God. Is that real or fake?
Real.
Steph is saying that's real, Joe.
I'm going to try and get these all wrong now. So I'm going to go with fake.
All right, going with fake, and finally Dan.
I will say real.
Dan saying real, Steph saying real. Both of you are correct.
Hey.
It is real.
I'm on a roll.
It is. You have a goal. Made by Attila Hard Apple Ciders. The name is taken from the cidery's namesake, mighty deity of war, Attila the Hun, the 5th century king of the Hunnic Empire who wreaked havoc between the Black Sea and the Mediterranean for nearly 2 decades. His destructive path earned him the title Scourge of God. Apparently this brewery and its parent Elevage Wine Company in Ellensburg, Washington are no longer around. Their websites are gone and there's nothing online since 2015, so that kind of sucks. But yes, Scourge of God, a really real cider. Moving on to Joe, who is going to guess first on this one, and this one is called Apply Liberally to Affected Area.
I'm going to keep my streak alive. I'm going real.
All right, going real on that one. Dan, what do you think?
There's no way that's real. It's got to be fake.
You're saying it is fake. And finally, Steph.
Real.
Steph is saying it's real. Dan is the only one who's correct. Because it is, in fact, fake. My only justification is that Apply and Apple are only one letter apart.
Oh my God.
Back around the horn, and Dan is going to guess first on this one. This is called So Freakin' Rouge. Real or fake?
I'm going to say real, but I want it to be fake so Fracon can use it.
All right, Dan.
So Fracon Rouge.
I didn't even think of that. Steph, what do you think?
Real.
Steph saying
It's
real.
like I should work in marketing or something.
Finally, Joe.
I'm going fake.
Joe is going
Which means
fake.
he thinks it's real.
Yeah.
Oh, you broke your streak.
Man.
You are correct. It is fake. So I looked up a list of apple cider, apple
Brutal.
varieties for cider, and there's a Frequin Rouge.
Okay.
I don't know if you've heard of that one, a French Bitter variety.
Yeah.
So I thought Freakin' Rouge kind of wrote
You
itself.
worked hard on this.
I did. I'm excited to learn about cider. I'm
This
excited.
is unlike you.
I am very excited.
Jesus Christ.
You were just excited about all the puns.
You're fired.
We are back to Steph to guess first on this one. Our next cider is called Badger's Spit.
Real.
Steph is saying that is real, Joe.
Badger spit? That's man, I don't know. I want that to be a thing. I really do. I'm going to go real.
Gonna go real, and finally, Dan.
I wouldn't drink that. I'm going to go fake.
Dan's going fake. You are the only one who's wrong.
Oh, man.
Because it is, in fact, you're totally fucking this up, man. It is, in fact, real. It is brewed by Chant Cider in Missomer, Norton, England. Badger Spit is a dry, still cider made from a blend of traditional Somerset apple varieties. Note that Badger Spit may contain sediment. And
sentiment.
Yeah.
Aw.
Also sentiment.
Badger kisses.
Yeah, Badger Kissers. It's a very emotional badger. Moving on to our sixth
Emotional badger.
and final cider of the game. It's really hard for me not to say the word beer. I'm so used to saying beer. Final cider of the game. Joe is going to guess first on this one. Tell me, is this real or fake? This is carbohydrates.
Carbohydrates.
Oh, man, I want to say real, but that's such a thing you would say.
Can you use it in a sentence?
Man, these carbohydrates are tasty.
I'm trying to lose weight, so I cut out carbohydrates.
I'm going to go with... what am I shooting for now? I'm confused myself.
You've got 3 wrong and 2 right, so you can go for 50-50.
Let's go 50-50. So I'm going to go with real.
All right, going for real. Dan, what do you think?
That's a Wayne thing. That's fake.
All right, Dan saying fake.
I'm saying real.
Steph saying real. Dan is the only one who's correct.
Damn it.
Yes.
You couldn't even get the 50-50
This is the
right.
most fake ones that have ever been in this game in
Which
the history, I bet.
Only did so you would lose.
I know. Because you learn that every time we play this game, I just say real.
Yep. So that is the last one, and we're going to add up the score real quick to see who our big winner is. And surprise, surprise.
It's always Dan.
Continuing his domination of Happy Fun Time games.
I don't know how it's happening.
On a streak. I think he's on steroids. Dan, with 4 out of 6 correct. Congratulations.
I'm getting glares from
I know,
everyone.
right?
Holy
yeah,
shit.
yeah.
This is my normal face.
That's his resting bitch face.
I'm just not friendly.
Joe did not succeed on getting them all wrong, or getting them all right, or getting half of them wrong or right. He got 2 out of 6. But
That's
Steph
the worst.
did the same thing by saying real every single time. Only 2 of them were real, so they are tied in second place with 2 points apiece.
I'll take it.
All right. This is, of course, the part of the podcast where we shout out to our most generous patrons on Patreon. We would like to thank you very sincerely for keeping the show alive.
You cannot talk to me.
Yeah, I've had a lot of cider. We would like to thank the following individuals: James Lamberg,
I like cookies.
Joe Mansell,
Let's go to the van.
Eric Dixon.
That's a very long
Ooh,
one.
lot of trouble in that one. Nate Fockman,
This is fire.
Brian Mills,
That's a 10 for you, buddy.
Wolfgang Von Colt,
Hey, Wayne.
Jen McDonald,
Let's go to the
Oh, I
van.
hit that twice.
Marilyn Engelman.
It's so tight.
Josh Price.
I give up.
Ron McDonald. And Victoria Miles.
Red leather, yellow leather. Red leather, yellow leather.
Irish
Sunday.
wristwatch. If you want to find out how you can get onto this list and many other perks, including the bonus podcast, Last Call, go to patreon.com/beerbusters to learn how.
Can I suggest that you make a separate swipey screen of just
Just
ones
things
that
that
are
are
good
safe.
for Patreon?
Yeah, safe.
No, just ones
Quick
that are safe.
ones, safe ones.
The ones that are safe specifically for when your mom's
Yes.
name comes up.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Was that a Drops of Jupiter drop in there?
Was there a drop?
Oh no, I could. Oh, I never thought of that.
Which
No,
one are you talking
that's
about?
That's our outro.
That's the outro music.
Oh, yeah.
That she's back in the atmosphere.
Yeah.
Oh, it does sound like that.
Listen to that harmony.
I never.
Oh, brothers can harmonize.
Have I ruined something now?
Yeah, right. Oh,
You gotta
man.
change it.
So now apparently we have to pay royalties for that. So Dan, what do we do now?
We gotta settle up. Dan.
Let's get some sponsorship money.
Say, Yvonne, remember when I said I'd have to send away to NASA to calculate your bar tab?
Oh, yeah. We all had a good laugh, Mo.
The results came back today. You owe me $70 billion.
This episode is brought to you by Loot Crate, a monthly subscription box service for epic geek gear and gamer items and pop culture gear. For less than $20 a month, you get 6 to 8 items that include licensed gear, apparel, collectibles, and unique one-of-a-kind items, and so much more. You have until the 19th of every month at 9 p.m. Pacific to subscribe and receive this month's crate. And when the cutoff happens, it happens. It's over. You missed it. By supporting Loot Crate, you are also showing your support for Beer Busters. You can sign up at trylootcrate.com/beerbusters and enter the code BRIDGE10 to save 10% on any new subscription. That is trylootcrate.com/beerbusters and enter the code BRIDGE10.
No.
Your beers.
No, your beers.
Oh, it's been so long since I got to ask this, but Steph, what do you got?
You want to make your own cider?
Absolutely I do, with coffee.
Well, you can make it with whatever you want if you make it at home.
Is there Mr. Cider kit you're getting me for Christmas?
No, you are never allowed to buy any kind of alcohol-producing kit that begins with Mr. ever again.
Okay, Mrs. Fine.
No. So, no. So our friends at BYO Magazine, of course,
Sergeant
are always
Cider.
great.
Doctor.
Stop it! Or I'm going to make you two do this again,
Oh boy.
which was clearly a catastrophe.
General Cider.
Are you done?
Lieutenant.
Probably. Lieutenant. Commodore.
Joe is not amused.
Admiral.
He's ready to rage quit our podcast.
I'm never amused.
To be fair, I am never amused.
So, Dan, do you want to make your own cider?
Mr. Cider.
Well, let's get some advice from our friends at BYO Magazine.
Yes.
So there are two important questions you apparently have to ask yourself before you can brew any cider or produce any cider. First of all, you have to ask yourself, how fresh does the cider that you will ferment need to be? And how hard do you want to make it? So you need to make a choice between buying pressed cider from an orchard or pressing it yourself. To press your own apples, you can buy your own grinder, which apparently costs like $500 or more, so no thanks. You can borrow one if you happen to have a friend that has one. Matt Vargin might have one, I think.
You can
Perhaps.
use a washing machine, too.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Hold on. Pause. How?
You just throw apples into a washing machine and put it on spin.
And it's
But how do you clean it out?
The juice comes out the liquid discharge on the washing machine.
But you never use it
Liquid
for clothes
discharge.
ever again.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could.
You could. Your clothes will smell like
It
apples.
does clean itself. That's exactly what that device does.
That's true.
This is genius. I might have to make my own cider.
Yeah, anyway.
I
You
might
should
break
YouTube
it, though.
There are YouTube videos of cider making in a washing machine.
Wow.
We need to watch this.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Or you can wash, cut, and grind your apples with a food processor or a juicer, but I have a feeling that's going to take you a very long time. Some orchards will custom press for you, so you bring or buy the apples yourself and then use their press on site, usually for a small fee. Or, of course, you can buy packaged cider concentrate. The next one, how hard, depends on the style you prefer. If you want a lighter, sweeter cider, use nothing but apples, but if you want something stronger, add fermentables. Cane and corn sugar are cheap, but honey and maple syrup will give you more body and flavor. You'll add sugars to adjust your starting gravity as you would for beer. So what's in an apple? Not all apples are created equal, and therefore not all apples will make equally good cider. Some are too sweet, some are too tart, some are too bland. Wise cider makers will blend a carefully selected variety of apples to achieve the flavor they like. The bland apples often serve as a base. They provide plenty of juice and plenty of fermentables, but will not have a pronounced, I suppose, effect on the flavor. Tart apples are necessary to balance the sweetness of other sugars, and if used, and sweet apples can compensate for the acidity of the base apple. That sort of sounds a lot like choosing your grains.
Yeah.
Like base malts.
Like you have ones that just are the workhorse to ferment.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And then you have all the pretty special and awesome ones to just bring more complexity.
Yeah.
Adjunct sugars also depend on your goal. Sweeter and more full-bodied ciders, you'll want to use honey. And of course, don't let it ferment all the way out. For a dry cider, use cane or corn sugar. Now, some will say that there's enough of the right kind of wild yeast in apples to get fermentation going on its own. However, there are also acetic acid-producing bacteria in there, so even the best sweet cider will continue beyond hard to vinegar if left alone. For this reason, you could pitch a wine yeast, or as Joe mentioned, a beer yeast, and you can all add sulfite to the must to reduce bacteria and wild yeast, as many winemakers do. Aerate the must, letting it sit for 24 hours before pitching the yeast. So, Joe, when we say must, that would be like wort, the liquid before it's fermented.
Pre-fermentation, yeah.
Okay, look at us learning. As in winemaking, it is a good idea to use a bit of acid to increase the tartness of the juice. 1/4 to 1/2 teaspoon of citric acid or a winemaker's acid blend per 5 gallons will give you a pleasant sourness without overdoing it. If adding honey or maple syrup, you might also find it helpful to add some sort of yeast nutrient or energizer to improve the efficiency of the fermentation. The process of making cider, as we heard earlier, is relatively easy. The apples must be ground to a pulp, then slowly and gently pressed to squeeze all the liquid out of the fibrous flesh. If a press is designed for apples, this happens in a wooden tub lined with cheesecloth or some such straining material, which retains all the solid while allowing the liquid through. The sweet cider is collected in a container. Adjunct sugars are added if desired, and we have a must ready for fermentation. No mash, no boil, no cool down.
None of that stuff.
None of that stuff.
No.
Cider.
I don't have time for that.
Don't have time for that.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
Cider is best kept airtight and sanitary. Think plastic buckets, glass carboys, and airlocks. Ferment for 3 to 4 months. Then
I always think about airlocks.
Prime with corn sugar and bottle in champagne bottles, usually corked rather than capped. The bottled cider is put away to age and condition for at least 6 months. And harder and drier ciders sit for a year or more if you can stand waiting. While sweet and fruity ciders just seem perfect for a warm summer evening. But you mentioned that you can make one and drink it within a few weeks as well.
Yeah. It is possible. The future is now.
The future is now. I love it. So there you go. Now you have been...
You've been ciderfied.
Ciderfied. Okay.
And if you want to read more about that, you can, of course, go to beerbusterspodcast.com.
Click on the red banner and get your free issue of BYO Magazine.
Click it.
Click the red banner. Click the red banner. Do it.
Beer me! Beer me! Beer me!
Cider!
Me! Round 2, fight.
I forgot to hit the second one because I was too busy yelling cider.
So, what do we have next, Joe?
So now we have ciders that fall into our exploration series. That's
Exploration.
our Fishtown only releases.
Hey.
So 2 of these are Halloween releases. One cider called Trick, one called Treat.
Nice.
Then we have Density, which is a dry hop cider, and Parallax, which is a pineapple cider.
Ooh.
So what should we do first?
I'd probably start with Density, probably the dry hop.
I am your Density.
The last one I checked, of course.
So it'll just be the D.
It'll be the D.
What's it dry hopped with?
You tell me.
Azaka
I mean, I'm
and
looking
Citra.
at the notes, but I wanted it to be a little more conversational.
Ah, jeez. Yeah, Azaka and Citra.
This smells like a wine to me.
It does, yeah.
Like I'm trying to pick out the hops. And
it has less of a hop-forward aroma than the Mosaic one we had earlier.
Now, Mosaic is more of a...
That's true.
It's more in-your-face hop.
Although Citra usually gives you quite a punch, too.
Oh, it does really smell like a wine.
It's equal parts Citra and Azacca.
It kind of has like a wine flavor
Yeah.
to it too. That's really that. I like that you can get that out of dry hopping it the way that you did. Like this is, I would not assume right off the bat that this was dry hopped. I think you're handing me an apple wine.
Right.
So do you ever add any, now besides honey, do you ever add any other adjuncts like sugar, cane sugar?
Adjunct fermentables, yeah. So Trick, which we're going to try, has blackstrap molasses in it that was fermented.
But that is a fermentable that not only will give you sugars, but also give you an interesting flavor and mouthfeel as well.
Yep. Yeah, and Spice has brown sugar. I don't do a ton of flavored fermentables. It's rare that I do a sugar addition at all. I typically just roll with whatever the juice comes with. So we don't do a ton of high octane stuff. Normally we're in the just under 6 to just under 7 range, just naturally, which is a fine place for me. I don't typically boost things, but when I do, I usually, we'll go with something that's going to add a flavor as well.
So I wanted to mention earlier, all of the names of your ciders are just one word.
Yes.
That's kind of cool. I like that. That's like your little motif running through that. Is that just to like sort of a keep things simple, have a sort of a connective tissue between everything?
Yeah, I'm really into simple as a theme. So all the ciders we make here, basically my philosophy is apple first. It should always taste like apples, and then whatever the adjunct is. So that flows, that sort of idea permeates through everything we do, our artwork, the single name nomenclature for all our ciders, which actually like confuses a lot of people. We'll see restaurant menus, they'll like add words before and after it, and I don't know why they feel the need to do that, but we see a lot of misnaming of our ciders, which I think is funny because it doesn't get any easier than what we do. But I'll see like Evil Geniuses all right, like a whole sentence is accurate. Yeah.
And that's interesting because, like with ciders, like with beer, a lot of breweries have just like given up on trying to come up with names, and it'll be like Joe's Brewing Company Lager, or like whatever name of brewery saison. But there's not really styles of cider in that way, or are there?
There are categories of cider, but no one really identifies them. Like most of our ciders fall into modern cider. We're not going to label them modern ciders,
right?
So it's not the same as labeling something a lager, where it means something identifiable that people are going to immediately know what to expect. Our umbrellas and categories are just too big and cover too much ground for them to have any sort of meaning to a consumer, really.
Right. So more of a category and less of a style.
Yeah.
Are there cider competitions out there?
Oh yeah, definitely. The biggest one, so our like GABF equivalent or World Beer Cup is called Glint Cap. It's the Great Lakes International something that starts with a T. Cider and Perry competition.
Wow, I was surprised that was actually an acronym after you said Glint Cap, and then you started saying what all the letters stood for. I thought it was just like a name that came from a place or a person.
Yeah. Oh, no, I think the INT is international. I think it's Great Lakes
that makes
International Cider and Perry. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
That is what it is.
Yeah,
that's another thing. I came across
I
the
know
word,
things about cider.
I came across the word Perry a lot when I was looking up stuff about cider. What exactly does that mean?
It is fermented pear juice. That's it.
Oh, that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
That changes how I look at Matthew Perry.
Well, it's probably spelled P-E-A-R-Y, or is it P-E-R?
It's P-E-R-R-Y, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, like
P-E-R-R-Y,
as in Katie or Matthew.
Yes.
I'll be pear for you.
Yeah, so that's just fermented pear juice. You don't see a lot of it in the U.S., mostly because not a lot of U.S. agriculture produces the right pears. You can't just take any pear and make a perry. It's less flexible than cider is as a category with the ingredients. So it's if I could find the right pears, I would love to make perry, but we just haven't found enough yet. So definitely more of an English thing.
See, you need to start an orchard.
I know.
Grow the right pears. Yeah.
Yes.
Tomorrow, I'll put it on my to-do list.
You need to grow the right pears, but also grow the right pear to start an orchard, right?
Yeah, growing the right pears could actually be pretty financially beneficial.
Yeah, you'd be kind of blazing a trail.
Yeah, you could like own that segment of the cider world.
Yeah.
So I just want to come back to the name really quick because the four core ones that we had earlier made sense. Bees, honey, earth, the mosaic, dry hop, a rosé, hibiscus and green tea, and the spice, which had a lot of spices. But now we have density. Where did the name density come for this?
So everything in the exploration series is sort of named after space.
Oh, okay. The final frontier.
Exactly. Yeah. So we call, you'll see over our production room, it says mission control in big letters, and there's some spacey artwork that goes with the exploration series. All of our fermenters and bright tanks are named after astronauts.
Oh, that's cool.
So yeah, it's just a theme. I've always loved space and exploring and that kind of stuff, so we brought that in here. It makes my wife nuts. All of our like Chromecast at home are named like Rover 144. So yeah, it's in all parts of my life, and I'll change him sometimes and not tell her.
That's awesome. That's so cool.
Yeah.
So what should we drink next?
What do we do? Density. I would do Parallax next.
Yeah.
See, it's going to ruin my mind if we do treat before trick. It will destroy me.
Do it. We should do it
Everything
backwards.
is wrong.
Why did I say it?
You should.
Oh, is this the pineapple one?
Yeah.
Ooh, I like that.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Pineapple juice is good.
Oh, there's something in the back end.
There is almost like
Like vanilla, almost?
Yeah, with like a little spiciness. Not like heat, but like
your hand motion is is describing it perfectly.
Conductor,
if only we could have words to describe
right?
it. That is really nice.
But there is, it's like a sweet, but sort of
a sweet,
but like a little dry kick as well.
Yeah.
That's really nice.
So yeah, a lot of that more savory characteristics in the back end come from the London ale yeast that's in that cider. So it's definitely a yeast-driven back end for sure.
And I love that the pineapple does not dominate it at all.
That always worries me when I see pineapple on anything. And this does not. It's there. You notice it. It's good. But it's not like the main driving force behind it. There's so much more to it.
In what form is the pineapple?
We use a puree.
Okay.
He threw whole entire pineapple.
Yeah, right.
Like it's pretty simple. You just throw it in there. You hit spin cycle, and it's just
Yeah, right. Gentle wash.
Permanent press.
Delicates.
Yeah, we use
I so want to try this with my washing machine.
It's
you
a
have
real
no
thing.
idea.
I don't think the warranty covers that.
No.
It's a real thing.
And it's
I
out of
promise
warranty.
you. Yeah, so we use pineapple puree for that one. But again, like I said, apples first. I try not to overpower the apples with anything, so which is hard to do with pineapple because it's a very strong flavor.
It definitely is.
Yeah.
But we used to make a cider called Tropic. It's on our Untapped page. Don't go there. Don't rate things.
As I'm literally on Untapped.
Yeah. So Tropic was one of the first ciders we made and sold, and that was a pineapple cider. So Parallax is kind of a throwback to Tropic.
It is really, you don't lose the apple. Like you get the pineapple up front, and then you get the apple, and then you get that like sweet, spicy finish that we talked about.
What does the word parallax mean or refer to?
Yeah, it's
like the thing at the Franklin Institute.
I don't know why I can't describe it in my head. I can picture it.
Well,
It's a very visual thing,
your
yeah.
visual demonstration
Right,
helped. That won't help our listeners.
No, but you guys totally saw what I did. It's the way like two things appear to move relative to one another as you are looking at them, and one is further away from you.
Yeah, there's
and one
that
is
big thing at
closer
the
to you.
Franklin Institute.
It's also the way that they used to make
that.
video games look 3D before there was 3D.
Right.
You'd have like 3 different layers that would move at different speeds.
Okay, thanks. I knew what it was. I just didn't know the word to describe it. So we're doing treat next, right?
Well, if we were going by tasting rules, treat would be next.
Yes.
Oh, let's
yes!
do it. Let's break all the rules of like logic.
I don't
and go by
want to
tasting
ruin
rules.
anybody's life, though. I mean,
It won't ruin my life. It's just going to mess up my already defunct brain.
yeah.
Oh.
So T.I. I assume is trick, and
Correct.
T.E. is treat. That makes
Yeah,
sense.
T.I. is a rapper from the 90s.
I think, isn't he still around?
I don't know.
I think he is.
So treat is apricot and Azaka dry hops.
Yes.
The apricot aroma is beautiful.
Oh, it's got a nice tartness to it.
That's something I could drink an entire pint of, like with pancakes.
Oh yeah, this would be good with pancakes.
It has not made its way to me yet. There we
Sorry.
There you go, Dan. Try it.
You're not used to having to share with me and Rich.
One of my favorite things about this cider is that it's
go. Oh, wow.
100% dry. There's like almost no residual sugar in this cider, but it has a perceived sweetness to it. I just think it's a great example of you don't have to add sugar to make it good. The fruit notes on their own will do what they're supposed to do. They're fruit. People perceive fruit as sweet. You don't need to follow it with a bunch of sugar.
This is really good.
So do you also juice the apricots?
We use a puree with that one again. We just don't have... I'm actually trying to find a small press that we can put in our very small space here. So we can do things like get whole fruit and press them here on site. I haven't yet, so we're sort of stuck to purees for right now.
It's delicious. Now, I don't know if that's my favorite or spice is my favorite.
I think for me, Spice is going to win.
Spice is still up there,
But we
this
still
is-
have others we need to try.
I think Spice is my favorite, but this is the most interesting.
Oh,
Ooh, all right.
Yeah, spice isn't really a curveball. It's kind of...
Yeah, it
It is what
Yes.
it is.
Yeah,
but
it's so good.
but it's so well done
Yeah.
because that combination has been bastardized so many times that to have it well done and well balanced, it's just refreshing because I think it's the ultimate comfort too.
Also, when we went downstairs to get the second
And the
flight,
smell.
you could smell the spice
In the round
in the
Oh,
round
yeah,
You're
yeah.
on heaty uppy
in
thing.
the round
Right.
heat maker. And it smelled like somebody's baking apple pie. Like it was
Yeah.
it smelled so good.
Treat is not on Untapped.
Oh, no.
No, we can't drink it.
Well, this is also how we keep a record of what we had on the show.
That's how I look at it.
It's a
it's
record-keeping
a reference for what I've had.
It is what I use when I write the episode summaries.
Yeah, it's only been out for one day, right? No, 2 days. Yeah.
Oh,
I guess you released on
so you
Halloween?
released it
Okay.
on Halloween.
Yeah.
Trick is on here, but Treat is not.
I trust you're adding
I'm
it.
curious what the scores are for Trick.
I'm not telling you.
And by curious, I mean I don't give a shit.
Okay, good.
Also, he said bi curious.
What's the ABV so I can add it correctly for Treat?
It's a great question. I should know the answer to.
I can put NA. It's no big deal.
5.8.
Okay.
Too many ciders. We launched with 4 ciders on draft 8 weeks ago, and now we're at 8 ciders on draft.
You look overwhelmed.
We knew we had some draft wines when we started, so we were running three lines of wine, and then we decided to go to all cider for the fall.
Well, that's what the kids want. So you got to give them what they want.
It's very true.
Dan, are you ready for Trick?
I am.
Treat Trick
I'm excited for this.
Treat or trick?
or Cheap Trick? It's like Cheap Trick.
Treat,
Trick. No,
yeah.
Dan kind of missed
Live
that.
in Budokan. Intensity and Sin Cities.
Budokan.
Sorry, my brain can't handle all of this.
Molasses and ginger. I'm excited for this.
Oh. Sorry, I'm
Ooh.
taking some.
I'm living vicariously through your reaction right now.
It kind of tastes like whiskey.
You won't like this. That's really good. Rich does not
Oh,
like
and the
ginger.
molasses really comes up in the aftertaste.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really in the finish.
Yeah.
What kind of whiskey are you drinking?
All right. I don't, fuck. You're the whiskey guy. I don't know. I just got like at the very end, like it's like a punch of like a bourbon taste.
I
It's
think
probably
it might have some of the sort of barrel-driven characteristics of whiskey, but I wouldn't necessarily say whiskey. Some of the dark sugar in there is very barrel-y.
Yeah, it could. I can see it.
What
As
it
a-
is,
as another
it's-
sip. Yeah.
It's like the dark sweetness of the molasses, but then like the punch of the ginger, I think, kind of imitates like a
the punch of the ginger.
The punch of the well, you know what I mean? Like it kind of imitates like that alcohol heat for a second. I don't know.
I'm with you.
I'm talking out my ass.
I'm going to
It's
say,
fine.
though, if these ciders are your interpretation of Halloween, you have really classified Halloween. You've made it classy. Because I think you've embodied fall, but in a way that I don't think I wouldn't expect. But I'm like, oh, yeah, this could be fall. And I feel like it's classy.
Well, yeah, like traditionally,
this
you
is
think,
the
like,
crazy stuff that's going through my head right now.
Like spice is like you think, oh yeah, fall. You know that tastes like fall. But you're right. Yeah, it's sort of a different twist. I've never, I don't think, tasted anything with molasses and ginger together.
I wouldn't assume they would go together.
And those are
seems
two
like a-
very healthy things. So you're having apples, ginger, and molasses right now. Very healthy.
So
Yeah,
my
I don't know what's
doctor
gonna
won't
happen.
yell at me?
So this is like medicine.
I have reverse gout, I guess.
Basically,
No, you would need cherry juice to.
it's like all
reverse
those ACV drinks that everybody pounds all the time. Yeah, I don't know. I knew I wanted to make a dark cider, so I started with the apple juice and then fermented it with the blackstrap molasses and fermented that out as a base. And I knew I wanted to do like a steeping adjunct. I thought I was going to do something more like a spice, something not ginger. But there's this great Indian grocery store near the homebrew store that I stopped in to get some spices, and then they have this amazing Desai ginger that I just knew as soon as I sort of smelled it. I was like, this is going in that cider.
It's such a like you. It's one of those things you wouldn't think like molasses and ginger. That does not sound like it would work, but it does.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it just sort of popped in my head. I had tasted the base after fermentation, and I knew the dark note, the molasses was there, and then just the ginger has that like sort of brightness, but more of like a punch. Like you said, it's got a little bit of a bite, and I knew that would go over top the dark sugar pretty well.
It's like a pillow.
Yeah. Well, and I think the reason it works is that they don't like come together at the same time, if that makes sense. Like you get the sweetness of the molasses and like that dark, like savory sweetness up front, and then the ginger comes in at the end. Like it doesn't, it's not like two things clashing right together. They kind of like meld into each other.
I don't really like ginger.
I got it the other way around.
Really?
I got the ginger first.
Oh, really?
And then I got the...
No, the other way.
Really?
Interesting. My mouth is backwards.
Well, and you've also been able to drink more of it than I have.
That's
Did you say my mouth is backwards?
No, my mouth
Oh,
is
your mouth
backwards.
is backwards? Oh, no, maybe my mouth is backwards. I don't know. I have fast ears and a backwards mouth. So can we talk about this medieval contraption on the table right now?
Yeah, we sure can.
This is the first time we've done alchemy on the podcast.
Exactly. As soon as you pull that thing out, it was like, this looks like it belongs in medieval times.
No, what you said is, and I'm going to quote because this was weird. What you said is that looks like the type of thing you would see on one of those medieval tool shows.
You ever watch like a documentary about
Medieval tool?
Medieval tool shows.
Like TOOL?
Yeah, as though that is like a genre
No,
of
like
television.
a documentary.
As though there's like medieval tool
Are there
shows
multiple
are
medieval
sweeping
tool
the nations,
shows?
like My Neighbor the Blacksmith.
I would watch that.
Neighbor the blacksmith.
I would
I would watch
definitely
it too. That sounds really interesting. But I feel like it's not a thing.
Blacksmithing is a really big genre on YouTube that I
On YouTube, yeah, I could totally see it. But you said it as though
Like
it was like
Home Alone.
like HGTV presents.
Yeah, right.
Chainmail.
Medieval tools.
It's like a documentary. That's what I meant.
Part
Like a documentary you would see about like things they used in the medieval times.
docudrama.
Like
He's making this up.
Like Seacrest is narrating it.
No, it would be more like Samuel L. Jackson or...
here's where they were drawn and quartered. Here's the Iron Maiden. Here's a decanter.
The decanter.
Wasn't an Iron Maiden not actually a medieval tool?
No, it
or
was
a
made
medieval
up. It was
torture
made up.
device. It was something that was made up later.
It was made up in the 18th century to
Yeah.
be sensational in museums. Yeah.
To rock.
Yep.
Yep.
To rock. Also, it was made up in the 1980s to rock.
Too raw.
The mid 20th century.
Yeah.
Mid to late.
So, can we get back to what this actually is?
Yeah. So this decanter, which is the right term for it, is it's called a poron. It's from Spain. It is a very traditional vessel in Europe that is used a lot for certain white wines and ciders in Spain as well.
So if we could describe to our listeners what this thing actually looks like, obviously we're all posting pictures of it, so you can look on our social media
I
as well.
also took a video of Joe pouring the cider into it.
But I would also say that it's kind of a mix between like Aladdin's lamp and a bong.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like if you
that's
took
pretty
those two
accurate.
things and put them together, that's kind of what it looks like.
That is perfect.
Yeah, it's like your Sunday bong. It's like the nice one.
Your Sunday bong.
The one you use when your mother comes over.
Right, yeah. Hey, Ma, you take a rip or two? Take the edge off?
We've come full circle.
Yeah.
Chainmail and bong rips.
So what is in the bong? I mean, decanter.
So that is a cider we call Viejo, which is Spanish for old or aged.
Mm-hmm.
And it is... This was like one of my first really exciting sort of passion projects that I knew I wanted to do for a long time and finally had a chance to do it. So it is a single varietal juice, Winchester apples, which we got from Big Hill Farms in Adams County. They also make great cider, so check them out. So we got the Winchester. We did a wild fermentation in stainless. And then it was only for 2 weeks. And after primary fermentation, we put it into Chardonnay barrels, so French oak. Traditionally, so this style is called Cider Natural. It's a Spanish style of cider. Traditionally, it's aged in chestnut casks and foeders. I couldn't find any chestnut barrels in America, and I'm not a cooper. So I couldn't make any. So Chardonnay was about as close as I could get for a used barrel. So we went with that. Basically, it aged for 3 years in barrels, mostly untouched, other than a few tastes along the way. But yeah, it was barrels that all sort of did their own thing individually. Some were clean, some were pretty funky, and we blended them all back together to make Viejo.
This all sounds really interesting. I really
know.
want to taste it. I was going to say my brother, the cooper, heirs after my neighbor, the blacksmith.
So this will be super dry. It's about 7%. It's farmhouse, so it's got all the funk and fun stuff that goes with that. Nice. It's kind of best described as like a funky white wine. It's the best way to describe it to people before they try it, so that they're sort of set up right. So
Prepared.
it is a still cider. It's non-carbonated. So this decanter, this pour-on, has a purpose, not only to let your product come to temperature, but what you do is you basically pour as much as you're going to enjoy at one sort of sipping, usually about an ounce or two. And the trick is to do a very long pour. So the sort of long flute on the front of the pour-on is directional. It guides the liquid stream to a very fine, controllable stream. So I actually have to stand up to do this pour. And it's super fun.
So it sort of aerates it?
Yeah, so you're trying to aerate the product.
Interesting. Oh, we'll totally need a video of this.
I know.
Yeah. Everybody loves this. This is everybody's favorite thing. So I'm going to find a glass. Please. So they actually have contests in Spain of who can pour the longest with spilling the least. It's very double dare-ish.
Do you get slimed if you win?
Yeah, right.
Like those pipe smoking contests?
Yeah.
Who can burn it the longest without
right.
like running out of tobacco?
Extinguishing, yeah.
Oh. Holy shit, look at that. It's like a cider whip. Do. What I'm surprised about is that I thought you were going to take the cork out to allow air in for it to pour.
It'll pour enough. The cork is like really coarse as well.
Right. So it's letting some air in.
Kind of enough. It's not like jammed in there.
Right. Look at that. It's like he's stringing out taffy. That's really cool.
I feel like this is something special you do. Like when you have special guests over. Like
yeah.
I feel really like honored right now. Like, this is something
like
super
that's
special.
like something sacred. Well,
Yeah.
it's also like one of those things where like when you have like a food or a drink or something that involves like a very specific method of like preparation and serving that just like sort of adds to the overall effect.
Yeah, so in Spain they'll have nails in the casks, and they'll just do that same long aeration pour just straight streaming out of the cask.
I feel like we should all taste it at the same time.
Let's do it.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
There's a lot going on there.
That is not what I would have thought it would taste like from the aroma.
I was expecting it to be way more like bam.
Yeah.
But
It's very
like,
the aroma makes you feel like this is going to be really jowly.
Yeah.
like I'm going to feel it in the back of my throat,
But
but
it's
then
not
It's not.
at
It's very
all.
smooth. It's got like a nuttiness to it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I need to take a second sip.
I just can't get over the fact, like, given the aroma, it drinks so much easier than.
Yeah.
Like, I was expecting, like, a super, like.
It's almost like a nice reprieve,
Intense.
though.
Yeah, like
you think it's going to be so.
Like, it's going to be one of those intense sour beers that, like, really good, but, like, after 3 sips, I need a Tums. But
Yeah.
it goes down really smooth.
and it's a nice relief that it's not.
Yeah.
So there's like a mental game with it, too.
It's a mental game.
I really like
Quit
this.
playing games.
I can't
with
find word.
my heart.
The only thing I can use to describe it is it's like. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
No.
It's like
It's kind of like.
It's like, wow.
it's like right now.
It's like a really good sour beer, but without, like, the burning.
Yes.
Like, I just can't get over how
Yes.
smooth it actually is when you drink it. Yeah.
But I don't. It's like it's not a cider to me, but it's not a wine, but it's not a beer.
It's like, yeah.
It's like its own
thing. Yeah.
entity. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Oh, it would definitely be more like a wine than a beer, of
yeah,
course.
way more Venus. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder what your mom would think of this.
I was thinking the same thing. I think she would love this.
Oh, she would.
Yeah. And she does not like beer and she does not like cider, but I think she's a big wine drinker, and I think she
she'd
would
be
love
into
this.
this. Yeah.
We may need to get a bottle of this for Christmas.
So yeah, this is
You need
definitely
one of those, too.
Oh, I need a decanter.
definitely more of a throwback to that wine crowd, that old world cider. They've been making this for 2,000-3,000 years in Spain, in the Basque region. So very regional style, very hard to replicate. While I'm very proud of this particular cider, it is definitely not what comes out of Basque. I really strongly suggest everybody sort of try and find something, especially if you like sour beers. If you're on the sour beer train, you gotta get into Spanish ciders. It's sort of a parallel but entirely different world.
Wow.
This has been amazing. This has been one of my favorite
eye-opening.
episodes in a long time. I still have 7,000 questions I want to ask you, but I don't want this episode to have to be 7 hours. So I look forward to coming back again in the future and seeing how Current continues to grow and learning more from you.
Same.
And especially to our solely beer drinking listeners.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, for a long time, I frequently was the one that said, I don't want a cider. I don't like ciders. I'm not going to drink the cider. But my eyes have been opened even just within the last year. And there are some amazing, I guess, craft cider makers even in Pennsylvania. And it's very exciting. And I look forward to learning more about it and drinking more. So if you haven't been to Current, definitely come. They're right on Girard Avenue in Fishtown. It is super easy to find a space just a few blocks away. Don't try to park on Girard. That's my advice.
Or public transportation.
Or take public
or Uber.
transportation.
Yeah, it'd be really
Trolley
easy to
line
get
right out
here.
front. You can easily get here using SEPTA.
If you live in Philly, dude, it's so easy to get
Yeah,
here.
you can get off at the, I guess,
If
the
you don't
Burke
have,
station would
like-
be the closest.
If you live in Philly and you don't have 50 pounds of podcast equipment to look around with you,
exactly.
very easy to get here.
Touche.
Yeah.
So if you want to learn more about Current Cider, check out currentcider.com. They are Current Cider on all of the socials. So take a look for upcoming releases, upcoming events. But honestly, just come out and check out the space.
Yeah.
And
It's very
you have to
Instagrammable.
come here like now in the season just to get that smell when you walk in.
Yeah.
With the round
Well,
warming
and like you
thingy.
said, like all of our beer drinking friends and listeners, like I'm sure you guys have tried ciders. Maybe a lot of you are into ciders, but like this has been fun. Like it's been a long time since we've like really learned a lot on an episode because
Yeah.
like we all know a fair amount of about beer now, but amazing. And like I want to start a cider podcast now.
We can have cider on this podcast. It's okay. It's okay.
So long story short, Joe, thank you so much, man.
Yes, for sure.
This
Yeah,
was a
thank
pleasure.
you guys. Yeah, it was awesome.
It was great.
We could call it full court press.
Oh, God.
No.
Full core press.
No.
I feel like we need Joe as a full-time host on this show just to shut you down in your ridiculousness.
I'm just, so all truth be told, I'm just not a pun person.
All right. fair
Can
enough.
you isolate him saying no?
Oh, I was going
so,
to.
yeah, good.
Yeah.
So we're
Every
just going
time
to
I
hit
have
the
a
button.
bad pun, it's going to be Joe going, no.
I love
Oh,
it.
God. Well, while you're
This is how you create a legacy on our podcast.
Racket.
while you're checking out Current online, don't forget you can follow us as well if you're not already at Beer Busters on the tweets and the Instagram, the photo thing. Facebook, Beer Busters Podcast, beerbusterspodcast.com. And don't forget 805-991-BEER, 805-991-2337, a text or a message, including what onesie someone needs to wear.
Yeah, you used to call me on my cell phone.
What?
It's a song.
Okay. I don't know. I'll take your word for that. But don't forget patreon.com/beerbusters as well.
No.
Why would you say no on that one?
No, it was him saying no to me. I was
That's a hard
mimicking.
yes.
I was mimicking when we have it on the soundboard.
But Patreon is a...
No, he was delaying. It was a delayed no to his...
It was very
Never
bad
mind.
timing. That was really bad timing.
Listen, if you've listened to this far into the episode, we thank you. And
course.
Please go to Patreon and support the podcast.
And if you're not at the point to...
You know, I'm not used to people telling me no.
If you're not at the point where you're able or want to be a patron, hey, man, it's cool. Just rate us. Rate us and review us. Help get the word out about Beer Busters. Spread the Beer Busters love. Because, hey, now we include cider.
And check out Joe's podcast when he finally edits it and gets it up on Current's website.
Do you have a name for it?
Now it's in the ethos. I have to do it.
Yep.
Is there a name?
The working title is Business of Fermentation. So it's not just cider.
Oh, okay, cool.
I like that.
Yeah, it's more about the business side of what we do, the fun stuff, right? All the spreadsheets and
Yeah.
trying to find money for everything.
It sounds a lot more useful than our show.
Yeah. So yeah, that will be out eventually.
All right, well, keep an eye out.
Yes,
it
keep
might
an
be.
eye
It
on
might
the
be
internet.
called something else. But
We will
look for
share it when we
Of
see
course,
it.
Yeah.
of course. Got to spread the love. Well, that unfortunately does bring us to the end of another episode.
Drops of Jupiter. Oh my God, it literally is.
It actually is a Beer Busters.
Stop, we're going to have to pay for
I know,
that.
we're going to have to pay. I just wanted to. It's so alike. Jesus
It's
Christ.
literally the same
It's
chord.
the same chords. 5.5 years, and that never once occurred to me. Thank you, Joe.
No, don't know.
I love
fine.
name
You've
that
ruined it for life.
Oh, no. I think I love it more. Man, seriously, thank you for having us out here. This was incredible. I mean, the ciders are fantastic. If you haven't been here, you need to get here and do it soon. But hey, my name is Dan Baker, and I am joined by my co-host and brewologist
Steph Hefner.
and the Demented and Fermented.
Wayne Baker.
Remember, no squids were harmed in the making of this episode with these delicious ciders. But you, my friend, we'll see you next time.
No.
The best soy latte that you ever had.